Welcome to Rob and Tony's Cinematic Adventure. I'm Rob Wilson.
I am Tony the Quano.
So, Tony, we had spent some time in the 90s. Now we're jumping up to 2010 with a thinker. We haven't done like a real thinking movie in a while.
We haven't. And we haven't done really a lot of movies that have been released kind of in the last 10, 12 years, 15 years even. So, because it's almost 15 years old now, come to think of it.
It is almost 15 years old. It's 2024,
but
and it came out in 2010. So yeah,
it's a thinker blockbuster, but it's from an era where most blockbusters are part of a series, right?
Yes.
MCU is still kind of new, but it was kind of building all around that. You had a bunch of Transformers movies, right? Pirates of the Caribbean, a bunch of blockbusters from that series. You had the recent Batman movies, the Nolan Batman movies, which is a good jumping point.
Yes. Yeah, so we're doing an original blockbuster from the summer of 2010. The Nolan Batman movies are a great jumping off point because this is another Christopher Nolan movie that we are doing. We're doing Inception. So this is our second Nolan movie that we've done so far because we did Memento a while back. And
it's kind of funny that, when you look at it, both movies deal a lot with reality and what we tell ourselves.
Yes.
They just go about it in very, very different ways.
Yes, they do.
And it's funny, it's interesting to look, this 9 years pretty much between really 10 years, because Memento was released at festivals in 2000, but didn't get the theatrical release until 2001. Right. Yeah. So you have about a 10-year gap, 10 years between the two. And you can see this big trajectory of a kind of independent filmmaker that got put in charge of larger things. And then, he can't do this without his success with Batman, right? Because it's a really original movie. And it's very ambitious. It's kind of his first big ambitious one that's very kind of original from him, right? There's the Prestige, but takes it to a different level.
Yeah. So this one, we saw it together, didn't we? It was in theater.
We did. I was about to say, we saw this together in Kansas. And it's funny, the
Hollywood Theaters in Lawrence, Kansas, which is now a Regal.
Yeah. It's funny because a lot of other Regals have closed in our area, after they've opened up other ones in different areas.
Yep.
Anyway. We saw it with your brother-in-law, Steve.
Yes, we did.
So, we saw it in a full theater. You should see a blockbuster.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's some of the ones we've done, like The Rock, our last one, I didn't see that in the theater. It was I wasn't old enough to see that in that theater. But Inception, I was. So, and, I was trying to remember when we decided upon this, I remember hearing about this being the next movie after The Dark Knight, but not knowing fully what to expect. You saw the trailers and it was trippy and you knew it had to do with dreams.
Yeah, you knew how to do with dreams and warping reality.
But other than that, you know a whole lot. DiCaprio in it, and this is at a point where DiCaprio was kind of going into his next phase of his career, right? He had kind of that period where he kind of started getting more respect besides just being kind of a heartthrob.
Yeah. Right? This was right in the middle of DiCaprio's heyday. When he's just making movie after movie. He was very much in the public eye at this time. He was one of the top Hollywood stars at the time.
So I was trying to look at that. Obviously Scorsese was using him in everything.
Yeah.
In the 2000s. He was also in Blood Diamond. And then he did Body of Lies for Ridley Scott and Revolutionary Road. So he recently had not yet been released. He was about to film J. Edgar for Eastwood. So yeah, and that's before he kind of starts getting into The Great Gatsby and Revenant. Anyway, so yeah, kind of right at his heyday. You have Ken Watanabe, who had been in Batman Begins. Is Nolan, like Scorsese, uses a lot of the same actors.
Yep.
Joseph Gordon-Levitt, who I believe was the first time he was in a Nolan movie.
Yeah, I believe this was the first one that Joseph Gordon-Levitt was in.
Been in others, but another actor that not an A-lister, but definitely enough of a name. And even had Ellen Page, now Elliot Page.
Yep.
And she, at that time, she or he, at the time, we'll say she because it was Ellen Page at the time, had been the fresh off Juno success, right? Right? That was a big hit. And I don't think Page has done anything with Nolan since. I might be wrong about that.
I don't think so. But yeah, and we had Tom Hardy.
It was kind of, but for Page, a step up from Juno, which is kind of this independent hit, right, to a big blockbuster type of movie, right? Tom Hardy,
who I think this is the first time that he worked with Nolan, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah,
And
because
he's another one that
after
done
this
a
movie,
bunch.
Tom Hardy and Joseph Gordon-Levitt both went on to be in Dark Knight Rises.
Yes. Tom Hardy, he done a bunch of British stuff before this. And then he was also actually in other movies like Black Hawk Down, Star Trek Nemesis. Yep. But he was more of a name over across the pond. Michael Caine, because Michael Caine is like
he's
in every Nolan
frequent
movie.
collaborator with Nolan.
Actually not. At that time,
at that time, he was in about every movie that Nolan did.
This one was a smaller role.
Yes. He was still great in it, though. I mean, Michael Caine is just fantastic. But then
is Michael Caine.
Yeah. And we also got Cillian Murphy, who, again, frequent collaborator with Nolan.
Yeah. What's funny is a proven collaborator, and then it took it to Oppenheimer to first really had the first starring Nolan role, and he won an Oscar, right? So Marion Cotillard, who was also later in a Nolan movie, in Dark Knight Rises, right? And then the person that, I knew he was in it, and I remember being in it, but I thought it was funny because, like, watching this recently, he was in it more than I remembered, is Tom Berenger.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely on this rewatch, because it had been probably 13 years or so since I watched it last. So when I watched it the other day, I was surprised at how much Tom Berenger was actually in it. I did not remember his role being that big.
Yeah, and I love Tom Berenger, especially I'm a big fan of Major League, so I love the role in that. So, and then Sniper, so kind of his big character, so to speak. So
in the substitute,
and then Deep Lip Rao, right? As Yusuf.
Yeah, Dilip Rao as Yusuf.
Pete Postlethwaite as well.
Yes, Pete Postlethwaite.
Small.
Yes.
Very small.
It's always like he's one of those people that you may not know his name, but you know his face when he shows up in a movie. I mean, he's in a bunch of stuff. Pete Postlethwaite.
I mean, he was nominated for an Oscar for In the Name of the Father, but he's also been in Alien 3. The first movie I probably saw him in, that at least I would recognize him being in, was Jurassic Park: The Lost World.
Mm-hmm.
As kind of one of the hunters in that.
Yep.
The Usual Suspects, I think we mentioned, Dragonheart, Romeo plus Juliet.
William Shakespeare's Romeo plus Juliet. Get the title right.
Yeah, I think if I recall correctly, he still marries DiCaprio and Claire Danes. So, but a lot of things, and even not just movies, but TV shows. Also, around the time Inception came out, he was in The Town, Ben Affleck and Jeremy Renner, which is a good movie. Completely changed my perception on Ben Affleck directing movies.
Yeah, see, I have mixed feelings about The Town, and if we ever do The Town on this podcast, then we can actually have a pretty good discussion on it.
Yes.
So I'm not going to get into it right now, but I have mixed feelings about The Town. But
the other actor in here who has a small role is Lucas Haas.
Yeah.
Who plays Kelly McGillis' son in one of Harrison Ford's, not big, is probably his most famous role in the 80s outside of Han Solo and Indiana Jones, is in Witness.
Yeah, in Witness. Yep.
Where he sleeps with an Amish chick.
Yep. Witness, where he's in the Witness Protection Program in an Amish community.
So it's always good to bring up other Harrison Ford roles. Like,
I
think at one time he could have brought Witness to a lot of people, and they would have I know Witness, but like he was a little bit younger, and you only think about him with Indiana Jones and Star Wars as Han Solo. Yeah. Like, oh, okay.
He does. He has a much wider film range than Star Wars and Indiana Jones. So he's in a lot more stuff. Anyway, he plays a variety of characters. But
I was watching this, just thinking about like this, we could go with this movie in so many ways.
Yes, we could. Yes, we could.
And it was funny watching this. When I first started watching it, I was starting to try to look for clues about different things.
Mm-hmm, so was I.
But then I just got absorbed in the movie.
Yep. Which is really easy to do with this movie because it's so friggin' interesting.
And it's funny in some ways. It reminded me of a way, like, okay, when sometimes you have these dreams where you kind of like you get into it and you kind of realize it's a dream, but then you kind of just get absorbed in it and you kind of forget that you're dreaming.
Yeah.
And you kind of forget that like you're in the middle of a dream. And it's funny. It's a movie that has a lot of action in it, right? And it's a movie you think like, okay, what are really the stakes of the action because they're dreaming? But like you get completely consumed by the stakes within the dream. I mean, the stakes outside of it, which help drive it, right? Because of the ultimate goal of DiCaprio.
Yeah.
But I was like, we could go all sorts of ways to discuss all the different theories and what is this? What does this mean? And, we'll see where we go with it.
Yep. We will see. It should be an interesting episode. So, an interesting discussion. So, before we get into the actual movie, though, let's get this out of the way. Spoiler alert, we are going to be talking about this entire movie, beginning, middle, and end. So if you have not seen it and you don't want to be spoiled, pause the podcast, watch the movie, come back and listen. If you have seen the movie or you just don't mind being spoiled, keep on listening. But you have been warned.
I would recommend, if you haven't seen it, just go watch it.
Yeah, watch it.
We're not going to do it justice.
Maybe watch it 2 or 3 times, because you're going to need to watch it a couple of times to really understand what's going on. Unless you're just one of those people that can pick up on a movie like this right away and understand every aspect of it. But I don't know that I've ever actually met somebody that could do that to that extent. No. So if you are one of those people, I would like to meet you.
Yeah. Drop us a line. So anyway,
so actually, also before we get into the movie, so there was a theory a while back that was actually confirmed by Nolan that this is actually what he was going for with it, where each of the main characters in this movie essentially play a different role in the filmmaking process.
Yes, so this is a good way to start, right? So this is like you said, originally it was kind of a theory, or some people kind of picked up on aspects of the different characters. It's kind of a sub theme of the movie, right? That it's about the movie making process. Yeah. Right. And in which it makes sense. And it gets back to what you're saying. Like, you get absorbed in the movie, right? And they bring us into it, right? So you have like an architect is like the screenwriter that is constructing the story where you get lost in.
So what I got, it was the screenwriter or the production designer.
Yeah.
Because they're the ones that basically put the world together. You got the extractor, and this movie, so just to, as we talk about the characters in the movie, so you can kind of get this sort of in your mind. So we already mentioned the architect, which is Ariadne, played by Ellen Page at the time, Elliot Page now. And then we have the point man, who is played by Joseph Gordon-Levitt, and he is more like the producer. He's the one that is that does the research, that does, puts everything together to actually make things happen. And then we got the forger, played by Tom Hardy, the character Eames, and he's the actor. He's the one who, impersonates people, and who
in the movie he does impersonate people.
Yeah,
he studies people like a method actor might today. Yeah.
Yeah, then
he gets all the intel.
Then we've got Cillian Murphy as the Mark. Cillian Murphy, he plays Robert Fisher.
He's us.
He's us. He's the audience. He's the one that the production is being put on for him. And so he's basically our eyes on what they're doing. Then you got the extractor, played by Leonardo DiCaprio. Dom Cobb. Crazy name. But Dom Cobb, the extractor, is the director.
He's the director. He's moving all the pieces around. And then I would also say you have Ken Watanabe as Saito, who be like kind of the financier.
Yeah.
Right? So he's like you have Universal, whoever's funding the movie for this to happen.
Yeah, he's like he's the money man. He's the studio.
Not sure who that makes Michael Caine, but
yeah.
I guess you can even say you got Yusuf.
The acting coach.
He's the one that kind of Yusuf, I guess you kind of say, is kind of the person that does this, is your sound person, your visual effects person.
Yeah.
That is kind of,
because he is the one that makes
doing
the
all
concoctions
that, right?
like the sedative concoctions that put them deep enough to go as deep as they need to go.
Right.
So he's kind of the AV guy. Yeah.
And I don't know who you call Mal. I mean, there's no name Mal.
Mal is the rival studio. The rival studio trying to sabotage the production.
I am also making a volcano movie.
Mine is just called Volcano instead of Dante. Yes. So you're making Volcano. I'm making Dante's Peak.
Now, you might have Pierce Brosnan. But I have Anne Hesh.
Yeah. Or you have an asteroid movie. I'm going to step that up, and I'm going to put Morgan Freeman in my Comet movie. You got Bruce Willis in an asteroid movie. I got Morgan Freeman in a Comet movie.
I got Morgan Freeman.
He's going to narrate the shit out of this movie.
You saw Shawshank Redemption recently, right? How can you not love Morgan Freeman? Got Ben Affleck. Huh. Anyway.
Been almost 2 weeks since Andy Dufresne said more than 2 words to me.
Whatever we want to do one day. Not a summer blockbuster.
No, not a summer blockbuster, so we can't do it yet. But that is one that's on our list of movies to get to, The Shawshank Redemption. But yeah, anyway, so now that we have that base level of what each character represents in the filmmaking process, we can get into the movie discussion.
And get the movie discussion. And I love how the movie starts, right?
Me too.
Get Leonardo DiCaprio is laying in the waves on the beach.
Yep. He's washed up on shore, looking over. There's some kids playing in the sand. And then he's got a gun in his face.
And next thing he knows, he's in this really nice dining room with a really aged Ken Watanabe.
Yeah. And we're all...
some of his little mementos.
Yeah. Yeah, no explanation for any of this stuff yet. We're just supposed to just see where it goes.
Run with it. Just like you're dropped into a dream. Like, okay, let's do it. Right? And you got old man Watanabe talking about knowing these things that got dropped on the table. Right?
Yeah.
And they have a little bit of discussion.
And then it just jumps to a younger Ken Watanabe.
Yep.
You know,
I love Ken Watanabe.
Yeah, he's great.
He needs more movies. He's awesome.
Another a movie we should do sometime. I know it's not everybody's favorite, but I really enjoyed it. The Last Samurai. He was amazing in that movie.
He was nominated for an Oscar in that movie.
We should do that sometime.
But now we got the younger Ken Watanabe, and you have a clean-shaven, well-dressed Leonardo DiCaprio.
Yeah, not all covered in seawater.
But you get the sense it's like the same palace or fortress,
same, like fortress,
house, mansion, whatever you want to
call it.
Because you don't know who. You get the sense now that Ken Watanabe is supposed to be someone important, and so they're having a discussion again, right? And what are they trying to discuss? I can't recall what they're trying to discuss. It's funny. Like, there's little details within the movie that you kind of forget about.
They're discussing. Leonardo DiCaprio is trying to convince Ken Watanabe he's explaining dream extraction.
He's talking about dream.
Yeah, he's talking about dream extraction.
Yes. And they're eating dinner. That's right. Because I remember, you have a scene, he cleans his face with his napkin, puts it down on the table. He doesn't really believe him. Because
he's explaining to Ken Watanabe that, his job, what he does is he goes into people's dreams and he's basically a dream thief. He steals information from the dream.
And what we later find out is that you have high profile, big money businesses, right, that want to extract information from like rival CEOs, essentially.
And so Ken Watanabe poses the question, well, if you can steal something from a dream, can you implant an idea in someone's mind? And then that's where Cobb gets into, well, a lot of people would say it's impossible. It's just very, very difficult. It's not impossible, but it's very, very difficult because it's extremely hard to, if you try to implant an idea in someone's brain, they're going to see it as a foreign thing and they're not going to accept it.
Right.
So you have to go through.
They have to go multiple layers to make it seem organic to them.
Yes.
And there's a later scene within the movie where they're talking about it again. And Joseph Gordon-Levitt uses the analogy of it's like, okay, I tell you not to think about elephants.
What are you going to think
You're
about?
going to think about elephants. But it's not your idea about elephants. It's my suggestion. It's my using not to think about elephants that implants that in your mind.
Yeah.
But you're aware of that at the same time if you're within that conversation, right?
Yeah. So it's the same kind of thing if you try to implant an idea in someone's dream, because then they'll wake up and they'll get that idea, but they'll know it wasn't theirs. They'll know that they didn't come up with it.
Have to penetrate the subconscious.
Essentially, yes.
Yeah, well, I mean, which you're in dreams you kind of are, but also at the same time you're kind of conscious of your dreams. So you have to go deep enough into those layers. Mm-hmm. Anyway, he doesn't really believe him. He says farewell, right? And so now it's because Joseph Gordon-Levitt's there as well, right? And they're talking, and also they can kind of tell because things are kind of shaken. Yeah, that he's kind of aware of what they're doing. Arthur is
Joseph Gordon-Levitt.
Very interesting name, Arthur. Right? Sounds like author.
Yeah.
So they're obviously they're trying to find. The real plan is to find this safe within his palace, his mansion. Yeah. And so they realize they have to get to work quick. But then they see Mal, right?
Yeah, Mal.
Like, what's she doing here?
This woman that just shows up randomly, and it's like you wouldn't think that she would belong there because she doesn't. And we don't really know anything about Mal at this point.
No.
But, she comes in, puts a gun to Joseph Gordon-Levitt's head.
Yeah. Yeah, because essentially, they capture them at the safe. And
there's a document. There's a document that DiCaprio is getting out of the safe.
Yes.
But yeah, so Mal comes in, starts explaining that, if she kills, if she shoots Joseph Gordon-Levitt, if she shoots Arthur, then, he'll just wake up. Because, if you die in a dream, you typically wake up.
Right. It's not the common perception that some people have. You die in a dream, you die.
Yeah.
No. It's not Nightmare on Elm Street.
No, it's not Nightmare on Elm Street. It's the real life. I'm sure most of us have had a dream where we've died at one point or another, and you tend to wake up when you die in a dream. So Mal knows this, and so rather than shooting him in the head, she shoots him in the leg.
Because the mind is still dull and you can feel pain.
Exactly. The mind is still active. And you can feel pain, and it feels just as real as if it had happened in real life.
These dream extractors are so kind of skilled that they know how to truly manipulate their dreams as best that they can once they get in there.
And by the way, we didn't mention that, it's kind of obvious now because we've been talking about it, but this whole interaction with Ken Watanabe and Leonardo DiCaprio, it's all within a dream.
All within a dream.
Right now. Like at this point in time.
Yes.
Yeah, so Joseph Gordon-Levitt is in pain, and so in order to put him out of his misery and to take him out of the equation, Cobb shoots him in the head. Cobb shoots Arthur in the head to wake him up, and he takes him out of Mal's clutches.
And Arthur kind of wakes up in like this small apartment, and other people are sleeping there in the apartment, right? Mm-hmm. And outside, there's kind of like this riot going on.
Yeah.
Right? And there's explosions going off, right?
Yeah, so that looks like it's like a Middle Eastern city, like Middle Eastern village.
Yeah, so that explains the rumbling that they saw within the dream, right?
Yeah.
So just like sometimes if you're dreaming in the middle of the night and there's a thunderstorm might not wake you up, but you might be dreaming during it, and you kind of have sensations of that storm.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Or you're dreaming and you have to go to the bathroom.
Which happens in the movie.
Because in real life you have to go to the bathroom, so in your dream you have to go to the bathroom.
Some people, they have a beer, they pee, brush their teeth, then they take the medicine, drink some water, then they might have to pee again in the middle of the night. Mm-hmm. Or if you're an older person, not like Michael Caine's not one of the dreamers in this movie, but he probably gets up several times a night to pee.
Probably.
He's got
now,
large
hopefully, if you're having a dream where you have to go to the bathroom, you're able to, wake up and go to the bathroom before you wet the bed.
Yeah. So I'm looking at the screenplay right now. The screenplay calls it Japanese Castle.
Japanese Castle. Okay.
So let's see. Here we go. So he's going down. He finds that. Arthur wakes up, and then, he tries to go back and tries to find the thing, the packet that's in the safe, right? And it's empty. Meanwhile, there is one person that is awake in this apartment, right?
In this apartment,
Lucas Haas.
Yeah,
right.
He's sort of overseeing the people who are dreaming, who are sleeping, because everybody is. So when Joseph Gordon-Levitt when Arthur wakes up, Cobb DiCaprio is sitting in a chair asleep, and they all have these IVs.
Yes, because they're using drugs to get them to sleep.
Mm-hmm. And
essentially, to get them not just to sleep, but it's to keep them deep enough in the sleep. Just like if you had surgery, they use certain drugs to make sure that you stay
they use certain
asleep.
Sedatives and certain anesthesia to keep you asleep.
But it's different. Where DiCaprio is, though, there is a bathtub behind him full of ice.
So he's sitting in a chair, like up on a platform, and there's a bathtub filled with water behind him.
And there's like water
and ice.
Right? Yeah. Oh, right. That's what happens with it, right? So he's there, and they go back, and
so Ken Watanabe is also asleep in this room.
Yes,
with an IV in his arm.
And it's funny. Like I like this. Before they shoot Arthur, Mal looks at Arthur. It's like, oh yeah, judging by the decor, we're in your dream, Arthur. Yeah. Right? Like she knows Arthur. Yeah. So there is that piece of information that's given to us. So they shoot. He wakes up, and when he wakes up, he's talking to Nash, who is Lucas Haas. He's the guy that was already awake.
Yeah, he's the one that's been kind of overseeing the dreamers.
Yep. And then they finally get to the point where he has, they get the envelope that DiCaprio had that he thought they got for the safe, and he opens up and it's empty. So you feel like, oh, he still got what I wanted, right? Not what I want. He still got my secret. The blank. So, and then, they open up this like silver, like a Halliburton case, right? There's all these little different tubes going in and out of it, right? That are controlling different things. And they realize they need to get Cobb awake, right? Because Saito's like awake.
Yeah, Saito wakes up and he pulls a gun.
Like he's sleeping. He's sleeping like on the floor. And then so they push DiCaprio into the tub.
Yeah.
Right.
They push DiCaprio, so he falls backwards into the tub.
And he's looking through these papers, right? And before that, they want to know who hired him,
Yeah.
right?
So in the dream,
some people,
DiCaprio is, he's looking through the papers, and all of a sudden, water just rushes in from all directions.
Right.
It just rushes into this Japanese castle.
And that wakes them up, right? So now they're all talking within this apartment. Now, everyone is awake.
Mm-hmm. Everyone is awake.
We all think they're awake.
Saito wasn't sleeping on the floor. He was on a couch or something, wasn't he?
He was on the couch.
Because didn't they knock him on the floor?
Later.
Yeah, they sort of knock him down onto the floor.
One of the first things he wants to know is, once they're all awake, is how they knew about that apartment.
Yeah.
Right? He's like, no one knows about this.
Yeah, this is a safe house. It's
and we find out it's more just a safe house. It's a love nest.
Yes, it's a love nest that Saito has.
A married woman, right? So.
Yeah, so he's trying to fight him.
Meanwhile,
he's threatening him with a gun.
Nash is still kind of looking outside, checking on the rioters, getting closer to the apartment, right?
Yeah, there's explosions going off, and the rioters seem to be getting a little bit more aggressive.
Yeah, and talk about they're still looking for these key pieces of information, right? But then we cut, right? And realize something else is going on, right? While we're going on this, there's also a bullet train.
No, not yet. The bullet train's not yet, because they get into a little scuffle with Saito, who's got a gun.
Right.
They knock him down on the floor.
Yes.
And they think they've got him, but then he feels the carpet.
Right.
And he
starts talking about
this carpet just doesn't feel quite right.
Yes, because it's polyester.
Yeah.
But then I think that's when we start getting the cut.
Yeah.
Like,
then it cuts.
There's a bullet train.
And everybody's sleeping on the bullet train in the seats.
And it's a dream within a dream.
Yes.
So then, they're talking. It's like, okay, Cobb's like, okay, well, all the plate pages were blank. So you've been holding information back. And he's like, yeah. And it's like, okay, so you have dream extraction, right? But people have also started to hire people so they can defend themselves within dreams.
Yes.
Right?
Yes, because in the world of Inception, there's, people, high up in the government and in, big, like billionaires and stuff like that, who
your computer systems and your vaults and all these other things against espionage. You can
hire somebody to train you to protect your brain in the event of a
They find out
thief.
that Saito purposefully let them go into his dream.
Yeah, it's sort of an audition.
As an audition, right? And he's like, but you failed because your deception was obvious. And he thinks he's awake.
Yes. Because he's talking about this carpet and how you got all the details right except this carpet.
He's like, I've always hated this carpet. Right? That's what he says. Like,
I've always hated this carpet.
Sprayed in such distinctive ways. I mean, if it's a love nest, it's a love nest. Like, come on, it's stained anyway.
Yeah, and he's probably spent plenty of time on that carpet to know exactly what it feels like.
And then that's when he realizes that he's still dreaming.
Mm-hmm.
Once he realizes that it's like he says like you've lived up to your reputation.
Mm-hmm.
And then Nash reveals that, oh no, you're in my dream.
Yeah.
Because inside is like, but in my dream, we really ought to be playing by my rules. Nash is like, you don't understand. It's just Saito.
Yeah, this is my dream.
And that's when all the rioters bust in the apartment.
Yeah.
They wake them up. Before Saito wakes up, they're able to leave their little sleeper car department. Not really a sleeper car, but a little compartment there in the bullet train. And they decide, well, okay. First, they're afraid of Saito, right? Because he's onto them. But they also realize that they failed their employer.
Yeah.
Thickable Corporation. So they split. They're going to separate and get back together again. And then Saito wakes up, and then there's this like Japanese teenager. Who's kind of rigging everything.
Rigging everything.
He's just rigging the thing.
He's just kind of sitting there across from Saito, and he kind of smiles at him.
And we learned that Nash was the architect, right?
Yeah.
And he was like, I didn't think he was going to rub his cheek in the carpet.
Yeah, because they're berating him about, you got everything right except this carpet. How can you get the carpet wrong? Like, I didn't think he was going to be rubbing his cheek on it.
Damn production designer.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Fake ass carpet.
Yep.
Anyway.
But yeah, so, and this is the real world. They're no longer in a dream.
Right.
Or are they? But no.
At
this point,
well, that's that is a question. Is the entire thing a dream?
Yeah. Yeah. This
There's so
movie
many
opens
layers
up so many questions.
Because we get the kids again, because now you have Cobb. He's like in his apartment.
Mm-hmm.
Like, Kyoto, Tokyo, somewhere in Japan there, large city in Japan. And he's spitting this top. He's got a gun, right? And he has a phone, and he's got a Tag Heuer watch on, right?
Yep.
Does he have his ring on in this thing? Because that's the entire thing. It's like his ring goes on and off, his wedding band. Like, there's so many layers of this, right? Because you see a lot of watches in this movie because they time things. It's a dream. They're timing different things in terms of when they're supposed to wake up, right? Especially when they go a dream within a dream. Because each layer they go makes sense that obviously your time within a dream seems longer than the reality of the dream, right? A lot of times you think, oh yeah, that dream felt like 2-3 hours long, and it's like 20 minutes, right? But then you go deeper within the dream, like it just exponentially increases. That gets me. You look at you have the top, you have the wedding band.
So at this point, so when he's spinning the top, he's not wearing his ring.
That's what I thought. Right. I thought the ring. At
this point, when he's got the gun out, when he's got the gun out and he spins the top and then it topples over, he's not wearing his ring.
That's what I thought. I thought you really only see the band in his dream.
Yeah. When they're in a dream, he's wearing a wedding band.
That's what it seems to me.
Typically.
But then you got the Tag Heuer watch, which shows up a lot. You got the gun that shows up a lot. And you get why he might have the gun, because he's always ready to have to wake himself up if he has to. You don't realize that his sense of reality is kind of warped, which if you're going...
Yeah, as the movie goes on, you realize just how warped his sense of reality is.
But he's on the phone, and he's like talking to like his kids. He's got a son and a daughter, and they're like 4 and 6 years old, something like that. Mm-hmm. Like, hi, Daddy. And they want him to come home. He's like, I can't. And then one of them all pulls him away. And Arthur shows back up in the room, right? It's like, we got to go, right?
Yeah, so this is the first indicator that we get that Cobb is not able to go and see his kids.
Right. We don't know why.
Right. We don't know why, but we just know that he can't. As much as he wants to, he can't.
And as we will see, the kids are another important aspect. Because all you see, a lot of times when you think about his kids, sometimes it's in a dream. Other times he's just visualizing them when he's awake.
Yeah. But he always sees them.
See their backs in this yard, and it's the sunshine.
His son sort of kneeling down and, playing with someone, but you just see the back of his head and then, his back. And then his daughter comes running up to the son, and again, you can see her back and the back of her head. But you never see the kids' faces in any of these visions that he has of his kids.
Arthur shows up at the apartment, and, he's kind of wondering, like, okay, he wants to make sure that, he's okay. He's like, and Cobb's like, well, why, right? It's like, well, Mal showed up in a dream like that. He was surprised to see Mal there. What's interesting, when I'm thinking about that, I was thinking about, like, the timeline of everything in this movie. Like, it seems kind of short, should it be short? But then when I think about this line here, like, that's the first time it seems like Cobb has really encountered that Mal showing up in the dream like that. Because he did seem surprised, and he's questioning about him again here, right?
Yeah, but...
At least maybe in a hostile way.
Maybe, but, I mean, from when his conversation with Ariadne later, it seems like she's been showing up for a long time.
Right, that's my point. It seems like it has, but maybe
their conversation here, it seems like it might have been the first time.
It may just be maybe it is just Arthur's first time seeing it.
It could be.
I don't know. Anyway.
Maybe Mal's been more of just a background entity and like just a Cobb up until this point.
Oh, maybe that's the point, because then he says, like, no, well, it's getting worse, isn't it? Right? So he's probably aware of it, but it just seems like it's intensified.
Yeah.
Like, maybe she's becoming more and more antagonistic, as opposed to just being a person. Anyway, we'll get to that. So they show up, and they're asking where Nash is, right? Like, well, we don't know. He hasn't shown up, right? And I realized that, so Saito was expanding his business, and Kabul Engineering wanted to know those plans. That's why they hired him.
Yeah.
And they're now 2 hours late on that, right? They realized they need to disappear because this is not a company that really accepts failure.
No.
So Arthur says he's going to go to the stateside. He's like, Cobb's like, oh, send my regards, right? And then he says he's going to go to Argentina, right?
Yeah.
They get up to this helipad, they're waiting, and then they realize that Saito's in this helicopter, and Nash is in there. He's been beaten up, right? He's bloodied. And Nash sold them out to Saito. He thought he could bargain for his life. But Saito still wants to hire them.
Yeah.
And they offered Cobb a gun. So I offer you the sentence, he's like, you can kill him, right? Right? And Cobb's like, I don't do things that way. Right. He might work with people that are like that, but he doesn't do things that himself. Right.
Yeah.
Now, and his reason is like he's working for these companies because he's trying to find his way. We'll find out.
Oh, and by the way, the conversation with Saito and Cobb in the dream wasn't quite about the Inception part of it, about inserting the idea. It was more of, I believe it was Cobb explaining his job. People hire him to go and steal things from people's dreams.
That's right.
And that's really the bulk of that conversation, was just him explaining.
Yeah.
People hire me to go and take stuff from dreams. Because the discussion about inserting ideas comes in just a minute.
Saito then asks him, like, well, would you work with him again? Shakes his head no. And Saito, motions his bodyguards, and they pull Nash out of the helicopter. And Cobb and Arthur, they're like, well, what are you going to do to him? I was like, I'm not going to do anything. Mm-hmm. But your friends, not going to protect him from your friends at Global Engineering.
Yeah.
So what actually happens? I don't know. Maybe they kill him. Maybe they just beat the shit out of him. I don't know. He's not the main guy. Right? He's not the leader. Yeah. So maybe they don't kill him because of that. Who knows? So they were like, well, what do you want? And he's like, Inception. And that's when we get into the whole conversation about, well, can it be done? Can it be not done?
Can you insert an idea in somebody's brain successfully, in somebody's mind? And, everybody's like, it can't be done. But DiCaprio's like, it can be. It's just extremely difficult.
Yeah. And then, and then finally, Saito was like, if you do this, like, I can give you the information you plan to steal. Right? And and then Cobb's like, I can square my way with Caldwell. Yeah. Like, I can figure out a way to make this right with them.
Yeah, because Cobb is trying to get out of the business also. He's trying to get out of infiltrating dreams, extraction.
And then he's like, okay. And he basically is trying to get, then he's like, Saito's like, you know what? Okay. Kind of like, you know what? I'm going to let you think about this. They can take you where you want to go, and you can come back to me, and we can still do business, or you can try to escape from Caldwell. Right?
Or how about
then
this?
He offers something else.
Yeah. How about this? You do this for me, and, you're not allowed in America, are you? You want to go and see your children, don't you? One phone call from me, and all of that gets cleared up. You do this job for me, and make that phone call, you can go see your kids.
And he wants to know, okay, so how complex is this idea that you want me to implant? He's like, it's simple. Because nothing's simple when you have to plant it in someone's mind.
Yeah.
And he goes into it. And he's like, okay, his main competitor is an old man, Pete Postlethwaite.
Yeah. Pete Postlethwaite, Maurice Fisher is his character.
His son.
And his son, Robert, played by Cillian Murphy.
Robert, played by Cillian Murphy, will be the one to inherit control because, he's on his deathbed.
Yeah, because Maurice is on his deathbed. He's very sick. And his son, Robert, is going to be inheriting the company.
Yeah. And he wants, if he wants the son to break up the corporation, that would allow his corporation to have complete control. Arthur's like, we should walk away from this. And Cobb's like, if I can do this, like, how do I know you can deliver? And Saito's blunt. He's like, you don't, but I can. And ask him, like, and this is a line that will come up later. It's like, you want to take a leap of faith, become an old man filled with regret, waiting to die alone. Well, later, that line being old men will come back. He's like, okay. Cobb agrees. He's like, all right, good. Assemble your team more wisely this time. And then, Cobb and Arthur kind of talk, and Cobb, Arthur's like, this can't be done. Like, Cobb's like, oh, it can.
It can.
You gotta go deep.
Yeah, you gotta go layers and layers and layers deep.
Arthur's like, well, still, like, you don't know that. Like, Cobb's like, I've done it. I was like, did it work? Cobb's like, yeah. And then Arthur's like, who did you do it to? And
Cobb won't tell him.
Yeah.
Cobb won't tell him.
And then Cobb tells him, we're heading to Paris. And Arthur has no idea why they're heading to Paris. Cobb's like, you gotta get a new architect.
Yep.
And as it turns out,
they go to Paris.
Cobb's father-in-law.
Yes, Cobb's father-in-law
lives in Paris. He's a professor of architecture.
Yes. And he's played by Michael Caine. His name is Miles. And he's actually the one, we found out in Cobb's discussion with Miles, that Miles is the one that taught Cobb how to go into dreams.
Yes.
He taught him how to extract.
What I like about this movie, there actually is like this world building of dream extraction, going into dreams, and manipulating things, right? But you're never given like the history of it.
Yeah.
Right? We know enough that, okay, Miles teaches Cobb. We also know enough that, okay, people can hire people to protect and guard their subconscious against these infiltrators. And we'll see later in the movie, there's people that basically kind of pay to get drugged to experience their dreams, whatever they want to do, right? Anyway, so
and they also in the conversation with Miles, they established that Cobb is the best extractor that there is.
Yes, correct.
And before him, Miles was the best.
So they're talking, and Cobb has some gifts that he promised that he would give the kids, and can he bring these back? And
he's like, a couple of stuffed animals isn't going to win you back into their hearts.
They kind of talk about how, like, well, you know, maybe talk with Marie, who is Miles' his wife, you know, Cobb's mother-in-law. You know, oh, we take them on vacation, and I could see them. You know, right? Yeah. Somewhere that's not the United States.
Yeah.
Maybe Paris, because, you know, you're teaching here in Paris.
Yeah. But Miles is very hesitant to help Cobb because he's like, you need to. I thought you were going to get out of this line of work. You know, I don't want to enable you.
Cobb's like, well, you know, after what happened, I didn't have a whole lot of choice today.
Yeah. Noticed
we're talking about his in-laws, talked about his children, talked about his wedding man, not mentioned his wife.
No, we have not mentioned his wife yet.
Do with that information what you will.
Yeah.
Considering everything we've talked about.
Yes. But yeah, so Cobb tells him, you know, I just need to get through this one job, then I can see my kids again. I can give up all this extraction stuff. Right. I can retire, spend the rest of my life with my kids, with my family.
You know, one of the things, you know, Miles even says, like, you know, you can explain what happened. And Cobb's like, they'll never believe me.
Yeah.
Which makes sense once you find out.
Yeah. So reluctantly, Miles is like, all right. I have the perfect architect for you.
Well, even before he hasn't asked that yet, right? He's like, okay, well, he's kind of asked, like, well, why are you like really here? He's like, well, I found the way home, but I need an architect. And Miles kind of thinks about it, and it's like, okay, yeah, I got the perfect person. And that's when we're
introduced to Ariadne.
Yep, played by Ellen or Elliot Page, whatever way you want to prefer to use. So she's got a bunch of books, right? She looks like she's probably like a grad student of architecture, right? And like, I want you to meet Mr. Cobb. Like, yeah, pleased to meet you, you know, kind of the pleasantries, right? And it's like, you know, he's got a job offer for you. Mm-hmm. She's like, oh, a work placement? He's like, not exactly. They're on the roof there, and they're talking, and
he's like, I need
you to tell me anything? He's like,
I want you. So he hands her a piece of paper and a pencil.
He's like, before I tell you anything about this, I need to know that you can do it. He hands the the little
piece of paper and pencil, and it's like,
right. It's like, I need you to draw me a maze.
Yeah, take 2 minutes. In 2 minutes, I need you to draw me a maze that'll take 1 minute to complete.
Yes. And right. So he's looking. He starts drawing lines. Right. And he's like, stop. And he hands it back. They kind of do this several times, and you gotta do better. And then finally, she kind of gets annoyed.
Because he's getting them done in like 5 seconds. He's getting through the maze, and then finally, she turns the pad over, starts drawing the back on the cardboard part of it. This time, all the mazes that she'd done before were square and rectangle and stuff like that. This one, she does a circle maze.
Yes.
And so she draws that one, hands it to him. He starts drawing a line through it to try to get through the maze. That's better. It stumps him right away.
Yep. He's like, okay. And then he looks impressed.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So now, you know, next thing we're kind of like in a large warehouse, and you have Arthur there looking around. He's kind of dragging around like lawn chairs, and it's basically a big empty warehouse. You know, he's unpacking things, and all of a sudden, you know, back in the day, or the kind of like this Parisian cafe, right? And
they're sitting outside at a table, and Cobb's talking to Ariadne, you know, explaining what extraction is.
You know, like, we only use a portion of our brain. I don't know why. This scene kind of reminds, like, at least the conversational aspect of this is very Tarantino to me for whatever reason.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah, he's like, studies have shown that, you know, it's believed that the human mind only uses a portion of its capabilities in waking life, but when you're dreaming, everything's unlocked.
Right.
You can do anything.
And they kind of start discussing like the act of creation of like architecture, right, or designing a building, because he needs a new architect. We as we discussed. You know, he's talking about, you know, how do you imagine a building? Like, you know, you create each aspect, you know, puzzling over it. And she interjects, like, well, I'm discovering it. It's like, exactly. It's his inspiration, right? So, like, he starts drawing on, like, the tablecloth, right? Because, you know, it's Europe. It's all people tablecloths. Yeah. You know, he's drawing a circle. It has these 2 arrows, right? He's like, your mind creates and perceives the world simultaneously, right? Mm-hmm. In a dream, right? Yeah. In the real world, you're constantly perceiving, right? But in a dream, right, you can try to manipulate it once you know you're in a dream.
Yeah. And she's like, why would I do this? Why would I go into this? And he's like, well, think about it. How did we get to where we are right now?
It's like, wait.
She's like, we got out here. Yeah. In a dream, you kind of just appear in different places. You never know how you got to that place because you never experienced the actual traveling to that place.
just show up.
And she's like, wow, yeah, we are just here.
So, and then that's like things start to kind of like rumble and explode, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's really cool scene.
There's all fruit carts and like paper stand, like newspaper stands and stuff.
You have a waiter there. You have other people dining. There's, like you said, there's other merchants are around there. They're doing their little task, and other people walking, and they all kind of freeze.
Yeah, they all kind of freeze and just start popping.
And it's really cool.
And some of the special effects in this movie are just incredible. It's
so good.
Because, Nolan is very, very much like a proponent for practical effects.
Mm-hmm.
He'll only use CGI for the things that it's actually needed for.
Yeah.
But yeah, he greatly prefers to do practical effects.
And later, there's a couple sequences.
Yeah, and the way that these effects are done is just incredible in this movie.
Yeah, and I imagine with this one, considering like the kind of splicing in, people being completely still, I'm sure there's a little bit of computer effects to splice some of this in together, but everything around it's practical. And and then there's a few scenes, not in this dream sequence, and then a later one, as they're kind of training her, kind of how to deal with dreams, right? In terms of, because initially what they need her to do, and a lot of times what the architects do, is they kind of create it, right?
Yeah.
They might not always be the one that go into the dream.
Yeah, they're not always on the go, but they create the dream landscape.
He goes into it, but he's only really in that first layer. He doesn't go deeper in.
Yeah. So they create the dream landscape, and the importance of the maze is that they have to basically make the dream a maze, so that if the subject's subconscious starts fighting back, they can escape.
Maze.
They can go.
They know how to.
Yeah, their team knows how to navigate it, and there are hiding places. There are escape routes. There, all this stuff.
And even within sometimes mazes, once you conceptualize it, you can have passageways through the maze.
Mm-hmm. And we learn pretty early on, like in his training of Ariadne, that it's very important that, because she tries to relay some of her ideas onto him.
Right. But he'll say with him, some training is like, I can't know.
Cannot know what this maze is. I cannot know what the layout of.
And as we'll find out,
this
is that he's afraid of his subconscious, other aspects of his subconscious, also knowing that and exploiting it. But she wakes up from all these explosions going around the cafe. Arthur wakes up, and it's like, oh wow,
So Ariadne wakes up. She's pissed.
Yep.
Because she didn't tell them that they could put her down, and
and she's everything's kind of exploded around her. Like she's feeling super real, right? And then they wakes up and it's like, okay, well, what's the line? Say, oh yeah, and a face full of glass hurts like hell, doesn't it? While we're in, it gets real.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's right. That's right. They do bring up this aspect of it. I forgot about it. Arthur's the one that says that it's the military that developed dream sharing.
Yes, it's the military that developed dream sharing.
Right.
As a way to train soldiers in a safe environment where they could, experience all of the pain and everything that they would be going through in war. But, if they were killed in the dream, they would just wake up.
And she wants to know how architects get involved, and that is like, well, someone has to design the environment they're in. That's why it's kind of maybe important for sometimes the architect to be the one that has that environment. Like they'll give Cobb the general details of the world, right, but not the layout of the maze, right?
Yeah.
No. And then he says, like, okay, but then he wants to go back under. It's like, let's do 5 more minutes. And she's like, what? It's only been 5 minutes? It felt like an hour.
Well, in the dream world, 5 minutes feels like an hour. 5 minutes in the real world is equivalent to about an hour in the dream world.
Right. And so then it's like, okay.
And each layer deep, that time gets longer.
Yeah.
Each layer that you go.
Then he wants to say, okay, let's give you a little more time and see how much more trouble you can cause, right? So now they go, she's okay with it, right?
Yeah, because Ariadne left. Because when they woke up, Ariadne left. She was pissed off, and Arthur is like, well, we need her. Aren't you going to get her? And Cobb's like, she'll be back. She got a taste. She'll be back. And sure enough, Ariadne comes back in a little while later.
It's like, I got to experience it more, right? It's like, to get that little taste.
Yep.
You got to go further.
First taste is free.
And so now they're just walking like along a street in Paris, right? She's like, who are the people? Well, they're just projections of my subconscious. And so it's just she's confused. Like, well, yours, I'm the dreamer. Yes, but I'm the subject, right? You're dreaming, but I'm the subject.
He tells her, no, this isn't your dream. This is my dream.
That's right.
I'm sharing my dream with you.
Right. And he's like, my subconscious will populate the world of the dream. And all of a sudden, like as they're kind of, so you could build, a bank vault, jail, right? The idea is like you're saying, like their plan, at least what they do, right, is to extract information, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if they're trying to extract information from a subject, so like say Saedo, right? The Cabal Corporation wanted to get his plans for expansion, right? So it makes sense that he might have that under lock, right?
Yes.
So if you're the architect, then within the world, maybe build a bank vault, right? Maybe you just build a old-fashioned safe, right? Like the one Jack Daniels kicked and developed gangrene on.
And then that ended up killing him. I touched that safe.
Maybe it's a gun lockbox, right?
Mm-hmm.
That also has this secret on it. It could be any type of thing that's secure like that.
Could be a shoebox.
It could be a shoebox. And then they break in and steal, right? That's the idea, right? Then so she starts getting curious, like, okay, well, she realizes like it's not just the visuals, it's like about the physics. You can mess with the physics of a dream, right? Because a dream's never quite how you actually experience things in real life, right?
Yeah, so this is when one of the really cool visual effects spots happens.
And they're walking and she starts lifting up the city street, and then
so
now it's like perpendicular, like almost 90 degrees. But
then it folds over on top of itself. So there's a copy of the street they're walking on and all the buildings and houses and all that stuff above them.
And then they walk to kind of the edge, and then they kind of walk.
And they walk up the wall.
They're kind of parallel up the wall, and then they kind of walk upside down, and then right side up again.
Yeah.
It's so cool.
It is.
And I love how the part, like, when it's happening, she's looking at it. She's like, it's something. And he's like, and he's impressed by what she's doing.
But also, while she's doing this,
he's impressed how quickly
she's picking it up. But also, while she's doing this, while she's manipulating the world, all of these projections of his subconscious, all the people walking down the street, they start looking at her.
After they're back, like, walking normally again, they start looking. It's like, well, what's going on? It's like, well, it's my subconscious. And I just realized that the physics of this makes no sense at all.
Yeah. So because my subconscious recognizes that you're messing with stuff.
Like that, and again, like within a dream, if things start making no sense at all, right? Like, like all of a sudden you start realizing, oh, I'm in a dream, right? Like if I started dreaming, like, oh, like if you live in Kansas and all of a sudden you have a dream when you realize you're living in Michigan, like, oh, I'm probably dreaming.
Yeah.
You're aware you're in that dream now, right? Yeah.
And then, the more she does to manipulate things, the more aggressive the projections seem to get. And they start like bumping into her and shoving her and all this. And he's like, make them stop. She's like, make them stop. And he's like, I can't. This is my subconscious controlling them. I can't control my subconscious.
And he realizes that she's used a very specific place that he recognizes and knows, which just amplifies his subconscious more to know that something is wrong.
Mm-hmm.
He's saying, like, never use real places. Use like lamppost, kind of vague things, right? Just like a vague idea of what a restaurant is, right? Or a post office box, right?
Use markers, but don't use actual real life places.
And so then it just starts getting it even more intense, right? And like she's like, oh yeah, well I know this. Like this is this bridge I cross every day to go to class.
Mm-hmm.
But like it's like, no, you gotta imagine new places, right? Just use those markers, right? And then he says, it's like, oh yeah. And part of it's like he's starting to say is like, the other aspect is like if you start using real places within the dreams, you also start to use reality, like what's the dream and what's the real world?
You start to your sense of reality starts to get skewed.
Yeah. Which would make sense. Like, like if all you're dreaming about is stuff that's, very, very familiar to you. you might confuse the two things, as opposed to like, oh yeah, okay, I again, like, oh, I don't live in Michigan, I live in Kansas, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like I don't drive a Toyota, right? Or like, oh no, I why would I be driving a Mini Cooper?
Yeah. Oh, would anybody be driving a Mini Cooper?
Mark Wahlberg and Michael Caine is in the.
Yes, he is.
And finally, Mal shows up again. And this time, like, she's pissed.
Yeah.
And she stabs Ariadne.
Yeah, she stabs Ariadne in the stomach. And yes, Ariadne wakes up and she starts
Cobb's
freaking
still
out.
asleep.
Yeah, Cobb's still asleep.
Arthur's there.
And she's like, who was that? Who was that woman? And Arthur's like, that's Cobb's wife.
It's like, I see you better.
I see you met Mal. Who's Mal? That's Cobb's wife. She's like, his wife?
And then Cobb's just like, he's taking off the little IV. And he's like, oh yeah, she's going to need a totem.
Yep.
The totem is what grounds you within the reality. Something that when you feel it, and you know it's yours, and it acts the way it's supposed to act.
Yeah, so Arthur is explaining that, he's explaining the totem to Ariadne, and how his totem is a weighted die.
It's a loaded die.
Yeah, it's a loaded die. And so he holds it out so she can see it, and she reaches for it, and he's like, nope, you can't touch it. The totem is something that only you have contact with it. You're the only one that knows the exact weight, the exact texture, the exact everything about this totem.
Right.
It can be anything you want it to be, but it has to be something that you are the only one that comes in contact with.
And she's like, oh, like the coins? Like, no, the coin is too specific. Like, it's too common. No, it needs to be really stand out. Right? Because you got to, like you said, you have to intimately know that item. Yeah. And this is where it gets interesting. Because we don't know Cobb's totem yet.
No, we don't. So
we really only discover the three of the totems.
Yeah. So we see Ariadne. She's got a pawn.
Later, she'll basically kind of cut out a pawn.
Yeah, she's got a pawn from a chess set, and she hollows out the bottom of it.
Yeah, she makes it specifically for her. Like, it's not just a common pawn, right? Because
she changes the weight. She changes the
author uses a loaded die, right? Mm-hmm. Not just any die needs to be. It's loaded.
He uses a loaded die. It's loaded to a specific weight.
It has a bit more weight than what a die from any other board game might have, right? But then we see Cobb after this. He's in the bathroom, and he spins the top, right? And it topples over and gives it, okay, this top is Cobb's totem.
Yeah. But is it? Is it Cobb's totem?
We don't get the answer.
Not yet.
Is it the wedding band? Is it the Tag Howell?
We don't get the answer on what but we get the answer on whose totem this is.
Well, yes.
The top. But we don't get the answer on what Cobb's totem is.
No, it could be the top. It could be
the wedding band. It could be his gun.
It
could be his watch. It could be anything.
Right. But at the same time, I don't know if he would wear the wedding band in the dream. I mean, that much connection to it in the dream if it's his totem.
True.
I don't know. Just saying.
True. Because when he's dreaming, he's wearing it. When he's not in a dream, he's not wearing it.
But is he wearing the watch in the real world? I don't know. Anyway, where's he watch? I think he wears the watch. Does he wear the watch in
the dream? I don't know.
That's my point. These are these little pieces of information that I was trying to catch.
Mm-hmm.
But you get absorbed in the movie.
Yeah.
And you forget.
So is this when is it that Ariadne gets her pawn?
And at some point,
is that later, or is that here?
It's actually a little bit later.
Okay.
It's during kind of the sequence where they're kind of...
Yeah, when they're going and building their team.
Yeah. So Cobb looks at everything, right? And he's like, okay. He's impressed. Like, he's talking to Arthur. Like, she's left. It's just the two of them. He's like, she's picked this up really quickly.
Mm-hmm.
I've never seen anyone pick this world building up like she does, right? Like, when she comes back, get her actually building mazes that could be used in these shared dreams, right? Arthur's like, where are you going? Because Cobb said he's leaving. He's like, I got to go talk to Eames. Well, Eames is in Momboso, Kobol's backyard. Because that's a necessary risk. And Arthur's like, there's other thieves, right? It's like, we need more than a thief. We need someone that can forge things, right?
Yeah.
So it cuts it. They're now Mombosa, right? And it's basically, they're at kind of like is it a card game or a craps game?
It's a craps game.
Yeah, craps game. And, Cobb is like overseeing, and Eames is like Tom Hardy. That's what he says, right? Because he has these chips, right? And then Cobb's like, rub them against each other, all you like. They're not gonna breed. And so Eames puts down his last chips for the craps game. The dice are rolled, and he loses. And so then, they go off to drinking together, right? Eames is like, yeah, you're buying, right? He came out to me, I got bad luck. Right? Yeah. And Cobb's like, all right, start talking, business. I'm like, okay. And he's like, how's your handwriting? Eames is like, oh, yeah, it's good. And Eames gets the point, though. He's like, oh, you're not welcome around here. He knows there's a bounty on Cobb's head. Mm-hmm. Cobb doesn't know that yet. Cobb thought he could swear things easily. No, they put a bounty on it.
It's never that easy.
And Cobb's like, yeah, you wouldn't sell me out. He was like, yeah, I would. Cobb's like, yeah, not when you hear what I'm selling. It's like, he starts talking about Inception. And all of a sudden, okay. Eames is like, okay, it's impossible, but I'm interested, right? Because he thinks it's supposed to be impossible too. But he's the type of guy that it's not just about the money, but the challenge. Yeah. And it's like, he doesn't really say it's impossible, because Cobbs is like, don't bother telling me it's impossible. And he was like, yeah, it's possible. It's just bloody difficult. Mm-hmm. Because, he's British. He's bloody. I love bloody.
Yeah. Blood is a great word.
Americans need to insert bloody into everything. Yeah. We should. Like Cobb's like, yeah, I keep telling Arthur that. And he was just like, you're still working with that stick in the mud. Yeah, I love this line, because it kind of comes back later, right? Cobb's like, yeah, well, he's a good point man, and he was like, yeah, he's the best, but he has no imagination. Again, like he's the producer, he doesn't have the imagination. Yeah, he pays other people to be the imagination, right? And he was like, if we're gonna perform Inception, you need imagination, and the whole thing. Like Cobb, he was like, yeah, well, we tried it, but the idea never took place. Cobb's like, well, he didn't play it deep enough. Mm-hmm. And he was like, well, it's not just about the depth; it needs to grow naturally. Right, it's got to be super, super subtle about what you're doing with it. And God, I know, and that's why I'm asking you, because you're the best. And Cobb lays it out. It's like, okay, well, there's an heir to a corporation. I need him to break up his father's empire. And it's like, well, there's all these motivations. It could be political, it could be ideological. Like your anti-monopoly, right? Mm-hmm. And there's all these other prejudices that you have no idea that might be within the subconscious of the subject.
Yeah. Or we can plant a seed, I hate my father, I'm not going to go along with his stuff. And then that's when Cobb, it's like, no, we need something positive.
Right.
Because, yeah, sure, hatred is a good motivator for something like this, but it's a negative emotion. Negative emotions don't have the strength of positive emotions when it comes to this stuff.
And we'll see what that is. And I was like, okay, well, we still need the right person for a chemist. Because the person that the compounds that get people to the right level of sleep to perform this, right?
Yeah, because in order to perform Inception, they got to be in a deep sleep.
So that's where Yusuf's going to come in. But first, Dean's like, you got to lose a tail first. He's like, oh yeah, they came, and he's studying. He's like, yeah, they came in this bar a couple minutes after we did. And he's like, yeah, Coble, yeah, they own Mobosa pretty much, right? So okay, well, you run interference for me. We'll meet downstairs, about 30 minutes, right? He was like, what? It's like, we'll be back in. Coble's like, we'll be back here. It's like, back here? It's like, yeah, they won't expect us coming back here. Mm-hmm. This is where you kind of get your Indiana Jones.
Yeah. So Cobb is running through the streets, getting chased by these Kobold guys. Yeah.
Eames goes up to the wall. He's like, hey, Freddy. Freddy, it's you. Yeah. Right. And, Cobb kind of slips over the balcony. And then it's enough of a distraction that, the guy doesn't see it right away. He kind of sees it. And then he tries to run after him. He's like, oh, I guess it's not you. Right. And this chase through the streets. Right. I guess I said Indiana Jones. It's also kind of like the Bourne Identity. Mm-hmm. Right. Kind of like, there's several, especially, I think it was Bourne Supremacy that had, or maybe it was Ultimatum.
Bourne Supremacy had him running through. Yeah. It's kind of like the foot chase in the Bourne Supremacy.
Yeah. Anyway, we should do one of those movies.
Yeah, we should.
David.
We should do that one too.
Anyway, he's running. He's trying to escape. He's going through this little narrow wall, which is kind of crazy.
Yeah.
And this scene's actually kind of one of the crazy scenes, though. Okay, if you want to go back into this discussion of it, it's all of it a dream. He's going through this thing that's more narrow than what it really should be. And he escapes at the last second through it. And as he escapes through it, who shows up in the car but Saedo?
Yeah. Yeah, Saedo just shows up. He's like, get in.
It's like, I'm protecting my investment. Protecting my investment. Shot back to the mummy.
Yep. But there are no scarabs in this movie.
There's no scarabs in this movie. There's also no Arnold Vosloo in this movie.
Yeah, no Arnold Vosloo in this movie. Or Brendan Fraser. But
right. So they pull back up there, and then Eames is still there waiting, and it's like, no. And, he gets in, and, obviously they're going to discuss with Saedo everything, right? And that's when they cut back to Arthur and Aaron. They show back and say, okay. And they kind of start talking about kind of creating a world, right? And not one with, like, again, they had that I guess you can say the job interview, right?
Yeah.
We had to draw the maze.
The
right?
audition.
So there's no paper, there's no pens, right? Just direct creation in your mind, right? And he starts talking about paradoxical architecture, right? So, they're both kind of in business attire, right? And then this office building, they're walking up these steps. But, he says, like, well, in a dream, we can cheat architecture. Right? Just like when she was folding the city in half, right? You can create closed loops, like the Penrose steps, right? The infinite staircase,
Mm-hmm.
And people probably are kind of familiar with that kind of infinite staircase. You got the not quite a full square, right? But 4 sides of the staircase that you kind of start going up. You go up, and they start going down, and up, and down, and up, and so on and so forth, right? You create paradoxes, and they disguise the boundaries, is the way he describes it, right? And he's like, she says, well, how big do these levels have to be, right? If she's designing buildings and city blocks and everything, it's a good question, right?
Yeah.
It's like, well, no, it could actually just be the floor of one building, or it could be the entire city, or it could be 3 blocks of a city, right? But it has to be, the way he says it, this gets back to the point of the audition, it has to be complicated enough to hide all these paradoxes and projections, which is why it had to be 2 minutes to do a 1 minute maze, right? Couldn't solve it in 5 seconds.
Yeah.
1 minute to solve it. Right?
Yeah, it's got to be something that takes some effort.
Quickly, then your subconscious recognizes it, and then that attacks. The better the maze, the longer we have before the projections catch us. That's what the projections will catch it eventually, right?
Mm-hmm.
Your subconscious eventually can discover, like, something is off here. And I was like, then she starts looking around, and then they're discussing all this. So all of a sudden, the people are looking at Arthur, right? And then they realize that, oh, yeah, because they're talking about paradoxes. Obviously, the subconscious is realizing something is off, right? And then, Ariande's like, oh, well, Cobb can't build anymore, right? That's why he's not the one that he's looking for an architect. And then they had a discussion like, well, I don't know if he can't, but he won't. And it gets in the idea of, like, he thinks it's safer because he doesn't want Mal to know, which I just realized, like, because she asked, like, oh, his ex-wife. Like, oh, well, she's not his ex, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's still a guy, like, no, she's dead.
Yeah. She's
now
dead.
we realize Mal's dead, right? So Mal that we've seen is dead. That's why he doesn't really want to create the maze that they're going to be in, because he doesn't want her showing up somewhere else, because his subconscious is still going to know what his conscious creates.
Yes.
So anyway, so they had their conversation. It's kind of funny, though. It's kind of like a small line. And, I guess as you watch it, it's hard to see because, like, you get all these negative impressions of her, right? She's like, oh, no, what was she actually like? And Arthur's like, well, she was lovely. So he knew her.
Yeah, he knew her.
I kind of, when I'm thinking about this again, like, oh, no, this has all been recent, but he knew her. Anyway.
Yeah, I mean, it was from the sound of the kids on the phone and stuff like that. And, they seem like they're maybe 4, 5, 6 years old, somewhere in there.
Right, and that's the thing, is when you look at the kids, okay, is he recognizing the kids as he remembered them, which he does, but it seems like they really haven't gotten that much older.
Yeah. Yeah, because, I mean, in the visions that he has of them, whether he's seen them in the dream world or he just sees them just in his mind, they look real young. But when he was talking to them on the phone, their voices are those of young kids. Yeah.
It's not like he's imagining a 3 and 5 year old and he's talking to teenagers on the phone.
Yeah.
Or even like 8, 10-year-olds on the phone, right?
Yeah. Plus,
still,
I mean, Miles told him that, a couple of stuffed animals aren't going to fix everything. If you're sending a present to your kids, when they're really young, it's usually something like a stuffed animal.
Yeah.
When they're older, it would be something else.
Anyway, So yeah, and the more I think about, like, oh yeah, like all this actually is pretty recent. Like those clues that dropped within, like all of this is actually pretty recent.
Yeah.
So anyway, to go back to Mimosa, and Saito drops the file in front of Cobb about Fisher, right? He's saying that, yeah, Robert Fisher is the heir to the Fisher Morrow energy conglomerate, right? And his entire life is supposed to be that he will succeed his father.
Yeah.
And he wants all that to break up, as we said earlier, right? And that would be a radical change, right? Because his entire life is he's supposed to do this. He's supposed to just continue on what his dad has built. Cobb's like, well, what's your concern with him? The problem with him is, yeah, that's not your concern. And Cobb's like, this is not the usual espionage that we do, right? You know, this is Inception. And that the seed that's planted will not just change him, but define him, right?
Yeah,
you know,
so
like
it's
whatever
not
it is.
Not a simple task.
Whatever is, it's not just that whatever impacting him to make this decision to benefit you, like it's fundamentally changing this person because it's going that deep into his subconscious, right? And then Sayo's my sources suggest he might not always have been so cautious because he knows that Cobb has done Inception before.
Yeah.
Was it, you know, and he's looking at it, it's okay. So he decides to give him a little bit of information. It's like, okay, you know, well, you know, Fisher, you know, he's got all the regulators and, you know, we're kind of the last company standing between them and total energy dominance. And if they can control all the energy supply of half the world, they can control governments, blackmail them, dictate policy, right? He says, like, they can become a new superpower. And he's like, the world needs Fisher to change his mind. So it's funny, like, you know, we said it was not just about him actually making his company larger. He just doesn't want them to be as powerful.
Yeah.
At least that's the way he spins it. So, okay, all right, well, you know, he starts with the obvious. Like, okay, well, he's the heir. What's the relationship? Like, yeah, it's complicated from what I hear, right? And you know, Ames just keeps, you know, trying to dig at things, right? And you get Ames kind of doing his kind of recon about everything, right? He's like, okay, well, I need references so I can get in to understand the Fishers better. So the next thing, even before you get to that, is like, okay, you know, Ames introducing the Yusef. It's like this, you know, they're kind of like an underground layer somewhere there in Mubasa, right?
Yeah.
And there's all these people hooked up to these different things sleeping. And Yusuf's kind of excited because, like, he's heard of Cobb. He knows how, you know, his reputation precedes him. And he's kind of, you know, it seems like he's excited to be able to work with him.
Yeah.
And, you know, he's showing him these different compounds that he uses, right? And, you know, all these people are all kind of dreaming as one together, right? And he doesn't want them, you know, they're talking. It's like, well, I don't just want you to create the compound. I want you to actually come into the field, right? Which is the dream.
Yeah.
I rarely do that. So what we need you to actually tailor these compounds to some very particular requirements, right? He's like, well, we got to go and we're looking for great depth. He's like, okay, he's thinking a dream within a dream.
Like,
No.
For Inception, when you can go 3 levels deep.
He's like, that's not possible. It's like that he's like, that'd be unstable. I was like, I've done it before. You just have to add a sedative. And he says, like, well, it's got to be powerful. How many? Like 5. And so he was like 6. All of a sudden, like, Cobb's like, what? He wasn't counting on Sayero to go in.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, 6.
6 people.
Like, well, it's like, no, the only way to know that this has been done, I got to go in with you. I love Cobb's like, we can't have tourists.
Yeah.
He's like, yeah, I think this time there is. Yusuf thinks about it. Oh, okay. Pulls out another bottle. Like, okay. Oh, yeah, I use this every day. Right? And then he kind of shows them a back room, right? And there's all these elderly people, right? And the tube's connected to all of them. And like, okay. It's like a 20 connected. Like, they oh, yeah, they come every day to share the same dream. Oh, yeah, they share the dream about, you know, 4 hours every day, right? You know, and he's asking them, how long in dream time is that? Yeah, about 40 hours, right? And he's like, why do they do it? It's like, oh, it's the only way they can dream. I like Yusuf. He's like, do you still dream, Mr. Cobb? Right? We don't really get an answer.
No, we don't.
But no. Oh, no, where's all the dreams? I don't know. Right? And then, like, eventually, like, you know, Cobb wants to actually be able to experience this compound. I think how there's like this other dude that's actually white. He's out, another elderly dude. He's bald. He's like, oh, no, they come to be woken up. That's an interesting line, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Very interesting line.
And so, like, Cobb tries to experience it, right? And then what he experiences is, like, you know, this freight train, like, space is on the trail track and this train's coming through.
Yeah, because earlier, what we didn't mention on the bullet train, Cobb was eager to get off of the train because he hates trains.
Yes.
But that's all he says about it.
Yeah.
Just he hates trains.
Which makes you wonder. Like, we'll get into it later because we'll see a very specific thing with the train later.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Did he choose that later because he just always disliked trains?
No, I don't think so. I think that is what made him hate trains.
Anyway.
But, yeah, we'll get into that. Yeah, I always took it as that is what caused him to hate trains.
When he wakes up, Yusuf is still there. He's watching them. He's like, "Oh yeah, it's sharp." And like, Comp, like, "Yeah, it is." And he goes back into the bathroom. And there's a dark lit bathroom with the little sink and foggy mirror. And he's trying to spin the top, and it's wet. And right, he's trying to, he's throwing water on his face and all that. So he was looking at it. He's like, "Yeah, everything is all right." It's like, Cobb kind of nods, picks up his top, gets a paper towel, dries his face off. It's like, it's fine. And I think this is when they cut back to Paris, and this is when they see Ariande crafting her little
crafting her totem.
And she shows it to Cobb, because now he's back in Paris, right? And he's like, "Oh, can I see it?" And she holds it back. He's like, "Oh, okay. Yeah, good. You're learning. Right?
Yeah.
And then Cobb's like, "Okay, well, how are these mazes coming?" And she's like, "Okay, well, yeah, each level's relating to different parts of his subconscious that we're trying to access, right?" And she's like, "Okay, the bottom's going to be a hospital." And then he's like, he cuts her off. He's like, "No, don't tell me."
Yeah, don't tell me what it is. What
you only really want the dreamer knowing the layout.
Yeah.
Right. And he's like, she's like, "Well, why is that important?" It's like, "Well, if any of the rest of us know the full layout, we can bring our subconscious into that layout."
And she's like, "Okay, so you don't want Mal showing up."
Right. And he's like, "Yeah." It's like, "You can't keep her out of your dreams, can you?" He's like, "No." He's like, "Did the others know?" He's like, "No." She's like, "You have to warn them."
Mm-hmm.
He's like, "Look." And Love was like, "No, I need them, need them, and I need you for this job.
Yeah, and then
I need to get back to my kids."
Then this is when he explains the top, right?
No. It's not until later. He explains it to her. Yeah, no.
That's later, huh?
Yeah.
I thought it was... Yeah, for some reason I was thinking it was when she brought him her totem, then he showed her the top.
It's later. So they start, now they all kind of sitting around together, doing their stuff, and Ames is getting really deep. He's like, he wants to know about the different people. So eventually, he's like, they kind of talk like, "Well, what's our strategy here?" Like, Arthur's like, "How do you translate a business strategy into an emotion?" Right? It's like, it's a good question. Like,
this is where they get into the whole negative versus positive emotion thing.
Yeah, so positive emotion trumps negative emotion every time. We yearn for people to be reconciled, for catharsis, right? We need a positive emotion to do this, right?
Not the same kind of catharsis, not the same kind of emotional catharsis as
that Michael Bain
and Linda Hamilton experienced in Terminator, but
gave us
a different kind of
Connor.
Emotional catharsis.
Yeah. So they're looking at things, and then Eames he realizes the person he wants to really know is about Browning, who is played by Tom Berenger.
Yes. Who is essentially the second in command of the company. Yeah. The one who, when Maurice fell ill, basically Browning has been running the company.
He's running the company. He's a lawyer, but he's also Robert's godfather. So there's emotional friction between father and son, but between godfather and godson, there's connection. There's this whole scene you have the father, he's in his hospice bed and knocks over this photo of him with his son when they're young. Kind of like their affairs, a little pinwheel. Photo is important.
Yes. Yeah, his son is holding, in the picture, the young Robert is holding a pinwheel. It looks like it was handmade out of like newspaper.
And
yeah, and the glass frame breaks.
It's like, oh, maybe it was just something, like I put it the other day. He never acknowledged it, right? So you can tell he's hurt by his father. Like they established that very quickly.
Yeah. And
meanwhile, Eames is in there. Like, he got the access. Sayura promised to get access. He's observing all this. It's important because he's going to act as Browning later.
Yeah, he's the forger. He's the actor in the film production, and so he's got to know how to impersonate Browning for the dream.
Yeah, right. And so the way he'll say it is like, in the dream, I can impersonate Browning and suggest the concepts to Fisher's conscious mind. Then we take Fisher down another level and have his own subconscious feed it right back to him. I love this. Like, and this is the way he says, like, the idea needs to be self-generated, right?
Yeah.
And Arthur's like, "No, I'm impressed." And he was like, "Your condescension is always appreciated."
Yes, condescension is always appreciated.
I love it. Like,
yeah.
It's kind of funny. They have a little bit of screen time, not a whole lot, but like, yeah, you can tell they don't like each other.
Yeah, you can tell they don't like each other, but at the same time, they work well together, even though they don't like each other. They can get past their differences to get the job done.
Right. So they're talking like, okay, well, how are we going to have, what are we going to do this? Like, they're trying to figure like, okay, when's going to be a long enough time to get him? They need long enough for him to be asleep that they can pull this off. It's like, okay, well, dental surgery won't do it long enough, right?
No, but there's a...
And someone's like, oh, well, he's got knee problems. Like, nothing long enough for this.
Yeah, nothing long enough for this, but...
It's like, oh, Sydney to LA. He flies there every week.
Sydney to LA. It's a 13-hour flight. He flies there every week.
And he's actually, oh, yeah. And then, like, it
would have to be a 747. It'd have to be 747 because the first class is up top.
Cabin is up with the pilots.
Mm-hmm.
It's separated from the rest of the plane. All you have to do is buy off one stewardess.
Yeah, we got to buy off. We got to buy off the section of the plane and a stewardess. Instead, I was like, I bought the airline.
It's like, because he's super rich.
Okay, that works.
It's like, you're paying us how much? My salary increased. Yeah, it's one of the longest flights in the world. LA, anyway. It's like, but
Sydney to LA, the same.
He probably flies private. It's like
the same flight that was in Lost. Yeah. Sydney to LA.
Right, and that's the problem. Like, okay, Arthur's question still is like, okay, we got that, but like we're going now 3 layers. You gotta have stability, right? That's what he's like. 3 layers down, a little turbulence is gonna translate into an earthquake. The dreams are gonna collapse upon each other, right? And that's what Yusuf is like. Well, if we sedate you deep enough, they create 3 layers of dreaming.
But if we go if we sedate that much. If we do use that powerful sedative, we're going to need something that's definitely going to wake you up when we need to wake you up.
Yeah.
And so that's where, because earlier they had used a musical cue.
Yes.
To just let people in the dream know that your kick's coming.
Yes. Right. We hadn't touched on that. Right. Yeah. So like you kind of hear it's Edith Piaf, who is portrayed by Marion Cotillard in The Beyond Rose.
Yes.
Anyway. Yeah. But yeah, you still need you need to be able to wake up from it because you're not using the same cues. You're going to try to use cues as you go down, but as we're saying, the time is going to be different, right? You got 10 hours times 20 times 20 times 20.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so
it kind of give you a sense of how long things will feel within it. And what I like about later in the movie, as they go within those sequences, once you're kind of cutting in between the different layers of dreams, each is portrayed slower and slower.
Yeah.
Compared to the real time of where the present dreamers are, right?
Yeah.
So once you get down to that 3rd layer, you have the people that are experiencing that, right? Which is like real time, right? Then that next layer up is slowed down a little bit. And the layer up above that is even slower.
Yeah.
Even though technically it's reversed, right? But obviously, within relation to each other, it's not.
Yeah. Yeah. So they're like, we can use a musical cue to let us know when it's coming time for us to be woken up. But how are we actually going to do the waking up? And then they, who was it that suggested the kick?
Cobb.
Yeah. Cobb's like, well, do a kick. And Ariadne's like, what's a kick? And at this point, Arthur is leaning back in his chair.
Like a 4th grader.
Yeah. Like leaning back, so it's on the back 2 legs, and Eames nudges his chair a little bit, and it starts falling backwards, and he has to catch himself. Get back up. He's like, that's a kick.
Yeah.
So he's like, when you're in a dream, and you start to fall in your dream, you have that sensation of falling, it wakes you up.
Yep. But the problem is, you gotta, if there's something that you're doing, you can't do it while you're falling, because there's no gravity when you're falling in a dream. Then Ariadne is like, well, through 3 layers, like, you're not going to feel that, right? That's deep sleep. Like, you got to devise a kick it off at each level to synchronize everything that penetrates all of it. Yeah.
So basically, each level you need to have a synchronized kick that's synchronized with the other levels. So it all happens at the same time to push you through each of the subsequent levels back to.
It's weird. It's good. And when it actually happens, it gets even better.
Yeah.
Right. So once they have their plan, there's so much to this movie.
There's so much.
Right. So Cobb is dreaming, right? And like earlier, like we see Yusuf with Cobb, and Ariadne is like walking out, going home, and she sees them, and he says, "Oh, good night," and she says, "Good night." And there's another night, like, okay, she just sees Cobb dreaming there, and she decides to enter the dream with him. And she's like, kind of an old fashioned elevator, the one with the little gate. They kind of go up and down the levels together, right? And at first, like she gets there and she sees Mal and Cobb talking, right? Right? It's like, oh yeah, do you remember when you asked me to marry you? And he's like, of course. He's like, well, you said you had a dream that we'd go all together, right? They're talking, and then Mal recognizes that Riande's in the dream, right?
It's like, what's she doing here?
He's like, I wonder what you're doing. And then he gets up, he's angry. They go into things and they start going different buttons together, right?
And they're,
and he's excited. This is the only way I can dream anymore, right? Like, he can't just do it, by himself because he has to be in a controlled environment to do it. And he still wants to dream because he still wants to be together with her.
Yeah.
And it's basically each level within this dream,
Yeah, because he loves his
like
wife. He misses her. He
regrets
what happened to her.
Each level is like different memories.
And there's this one down the lowest level of the elevator that Ariadne asks about, and he's like, don't go there.
Yeah.
It's like, whatever you do not go down to that floor.
Yep. And we see some of that, like someone's like very dilapidated, others aren't. Then we see their kids. And all of a sudden, you see
again,
him.
Just the backs of their kids.
You look at himself also, like a slightly younger version of himself. And there's this guy there, and he's like,
hey, Mr. Cobb, it's time. It's now or
time.
never.
He's like, oh, where's Mal? I was like, oh, she's already dead. He's like, oh, yeah, James found something. Maybe it's a worm. And it's like, I think it's time. I think about calling out to them, but I don't.
Yeah, because his kids' names are James and Philippa.
Yes. And then he turns around and he leaves. He's like, I waste this chance to say goodbye to them. Right. So he's reliving this, this moment. Like that's what people do.
The last time he saw his kids, he didn't see their faces. Yeah. So he keeps on reliving this, seeing the back of their heads, seeing their backs when they're outside playing, and he's got to leave for whatever reason. We don't know yet.
And then they go through one other level of this, right? And they arrive. They're in this hotel room. It's like, oh, this is where I asked her to marry me. And Mal sees it. It's like, it's like, Mal's actually talking to Ariande. He's like, hey, how can you understand? You know what it is to be a lover? To be half of a whole? And then, Ariande's like, no, because, she's young. She's not married, right? Mal's like, I'll tell you a riddle. He's like, you're waiting for a train. Train it will take you far away. You know where you hope this train will take you, but you don't know for sure. Yeah, and this line will come up later, right? Mm-hmm. She's coming around like, she's being very menacing.
Yeah.
Very uncomfortable. She's such a good actress.
Yeah.
But it doesn't matter. How can it matter to you where that train will take you? Also an important line, where that train will take you.
Yes.
Doesn't matter.
Yes.
Right. And Kyle's like, we'll be together. So he shows back up because earlier, Ariande actually left and went to the elevator herself.
Yeah, and she went to that floor that he told her not to go to.
Yes. So Cobb has gone back, right? And that's when he kind of talks about, we spent every anniversary we spent in this hotel room.
In this hotel room, yeah.
And then there's a broken champagne flute, right? And they kind of run back to the elevator, right? And Cobb pulls her in, and then Mal's like pounding on the grate, like, you promised we'd be together, right? Promised we'd go all together. And then, Cobb's like yelling back, like, I need you to stay. I promise I'll be back. You got to do this job. Then we can be together. Interesting line also.
Yeah.
And, they wake up, they're back in the workshop, and, like, you got to tell at least Arthur about this.
Yeah,
like,
you've got to tell somebody about this because, because if you don't tell somebody what's going on, then Mal's going to come in and disrupt everything. This mission is going to fail. Somebody's going to get hurt. And
then we find out from the CEO that Fisher has died, and that it's going to happen Thursday for the flight.
Maurice Fisher.
Maurice Fisher, yes. So, we get to them. They're at this point, Ariande's like, I got to come with you because I'm the only one that knows what's going on in your head. Mm-hmm. And so, all right, okay, we'll add someone else to it. So
because originally Ariadne was not going to go in. She was just going to design it.
That's it. And, because she's still pretty new to all this.
Yeah, so she's like, if you're not going to tell anybody else what's going on, somebody who knows needs to be there. So I'm going to go.
So they're in the plane, they're up first class, and like he even squeezes by Fisher, right? He brushes past him. He does kind of the classic move to
pickpocket move.
Yeah.
And so Fisher goes and sits down in his seat, and Eames
passes the passport over to
Fisher's passport to Cobb.
Right?
That he just swiped from.
They're kind of taking off, and Cobb kind of leans up over the him. He's like, "Oh yeah, excuse me, I think this is yours. I think you dropped it."
Yeah, basically just
the passport
as a conversation starter. So the two of them start talking. They start talking. Fisher,
your dad wouldn't be. And it's like, oh yeah. It's like, oh, he was truly inspirational.
Yeah. And then, because Cobb's like, I recognize you. And so then, so the Fisher's like, well, my dad just passed away. And Cobb's like,
You know,
oh,
he's
I'm so sorry.
I'm so sorry for your loss. Like, you know, and he gives him he gives him the pass. It's like, you know, thank you. And then the flight attendant comes up and he's like, would you gentlemen like a drink?
Yeah, and Cobb says, well, just some water, please. And Fisher's like, yeah, I'll have the same.
And then Cobb takes both glasses, but he also has palmed the sedative. And he puts it in, the water.
Sedative in the water for Fisher and hands Fisher the glass.
And then he holds it up. It's like, to your father. And Fisher just kind of nods. Like, yeah. They both take a drink.
And next thing you know, Fisher is out.
Fisher's out. And they all do the rest that they need to do. Flight attendant closes everything off. Make sure they're undisturbed.
Mm-hmm. Gets out the case, the Halliburton case. Opens it up, hooks everybody up.
And then they all wake up, right? And then it's raining in this city street.
Mm-hmm.
And what was it? Fisher's there. He's like, oh yeah. Well, first it's Yusuf, right? And then they get in there. They climb in the back of this van, and
this 15-passenger van.
Arthur's like, couldn't you pee before you went under?
Yeah.
He was like, there's all the free champagne before takeoff. Oh, no. Eames says it like, oh, yeah, a bit too much champagne, Yusuf. Yusuf's like, bloody ha.
Yeah, because this is where they're in Yusuf's dream.
Yeah. He drank the free champagne.
Yep.
It's first class.
It is.
They're going to drink the free booze. Like, this guy is probably not flying first class on an international flight that often.
No, especially on the longest flight in the world.
Yeah. No, this is not like, doing airline first class. Anyway, and they're like, okay, well, we know who'll be looking for a cab. So they pull out, they're in the cab, and then they get out there, and Robert, Fisher's trying to fly down the cab, and he gets in, and then Eames gets in at the same time.
Yeah.
He's like, well, what are you doing? Right?
Fisher's like, this is my cab. And he was like, oh, wait, can't we share? He's like, no, get out of the cab. This is my cab.
Oh, yes. He was like, oh, yeah, I thought it was free. Yeah. Okay. Maybe not. And then, Sayer gets in the front passenger seat and points a gun at them. Right?
Mm-hmm.
And then Fisher's like, great. And again, Fisher, at this time, he's thinking he's awake. He thinks he's getting robbed because he's Fisher.
Yeah.
Right?
So he pulls out his wallet. He's like, there's
$500 in there.
There's $500 in the wallet, and the wallet's worth more than that.
And and they're smiling, and all of a sudden, a shot comes through the windows of the cab.
Mm-hmm. Somebody's shooting at him.
And his subconscious has been trained.
Yes. Yeah, they quickly explain that his subconscious has been militarized because he's been trained to be able to combat any threat.
Even though he's not conscious yet that this is a dream.
No, but
it's been so militarized that any threat whatsoever.
Yeah, he's been trained to the point where his subconscious has been trained to respond to anybody trying to infiltrate his dreams.
It's a long shootout between, because you have the cab and then you have the van. And they're all it's a kind of a shootout between his security and them within their vehicles, right? Mm-hmm. And eventually,
they make it to a warehouse.
Even before that, then all of a sudden that's where the train comes in.
Yes, oh, that's right. The train smashes through. Down the middle of the road. They're not even like anywhere near train tracks. It's just this train just appears in the middle of the road, just crashes through all these cars.
But they eventually end up in the warehouse, right?
And they realize
that
Saito's been shot. And so Cobb's real quick. He's trying to help Saito. And who was it that? Was it Eames or was it Arthur that suggested just let him die? He'll wake up.
I think it was Arthur, but maybe I'm wrong.
That's when Cobb and Yusuf are like, no, we can't.
We are too heavily sedated.
Yeah, we're too heavily sedated. So basically, in this dream, and these levels of dreams here.
It was Eames that said it. Okay. That's right.
Yeah, so Eames said it. And then so Cobb's like, we can't do that. Cobb and Yusuf are like, we can't do that. We're all too heavily sedated. If we die in this dream, we die in real life.
Well, they said we drop into limbo.
Oh, yeah, we drop into limbo. Yeah, that's right. If we die, we're so sedated. If we die, we don't wake up, we drop into limbo. And
it's like, what's limbo? And Arthur's like, oh, that's unconstructed dream space. It's just raw and infinite. And then the idea is like, it's just like, well, has anyone ever been there before? It's like, oh, yeah, just Cobb.
Mm-hmm. Just Cobb.
And the idea of this thing is that, like, your subconscious starts to dissolve into your conscious.
Yeah. So in the real world, you're basically a vegetable.
And part of the thing is like they've spent so long, and because it gets even deeper, you've spent so much time there, you can't decipher it, and so your brain just is like whatever's going on. We'll get into that, right? And so like, oh okay. Like what the idea's like, okay, they got to stick with the plan, right? And so they get Robert, he's off in this little room and they're asking for a combination to a safe. They got, it's kind of the classic kidnapping thing.
So first off, they have Robert and they handcuff him into the bathroom, and then they bring in Browning.
Yeah.
Who of course
first he hears him screaming out there. Right, like he doesn't see Browning first. He hears Browning screaming.
Yeah, he hears Browning screaming that like he's being tortured.
He thinks like, okay, he's been kidnapped and tortured as well. It's like, okay, they gotta give him this combination. Like they think whatever's in this safe is important, and he's like, I don't know what's that. It's like, it's like the last will that that will actually supersede the will. And the idea is like we don't have the number, and all they really want him to do is just create a number that they can use in the next level.
Yes. So they're in there yelling at. At this point, they've brought Browning into the bathroom with Robert, and they've got them both, handcuffed next to each other. And Browning's trying to tell Robert, just tell him what they want to know, and he's not giving up any information.
He's like, oh, no, but your father loved you in his own way. He's like, last thing I heard him say was disappointed.
Yeah. So Cobb starts getting fed up because Saito's out there dying, and they got to speed this up. So,
and if they go to the next level, that it will at least slow it down for a little bit.
Yeah. So Cobb goes in there, puts a mask on, goes in there, and he starts yelling at Robert to give him the combination, the 6-digit number. And Robert's like, I don't know it. I don't know the combination of the safe. And he's like, what are the first 6 numbers that pop in your head? Yep. Just tell me the first 6 numbers that pop in your head. And so he tells him 528491.
Yep. And it doesn't work, but it's not for that level. It's for the next level.
Yeah. Well, for the next 2 levels.
Yes.
But
so they leave. And, one of the other things they're worried about is not just about Saito. It's like the longer that they stay at that level of dream, the longer that Robert's subconscious security has at attacking them. And they realize they have only so long to be able to hold that off, that assault.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So they realize they have to leave that warehouse. And the idea is they're going to use that passenger van, which is where Yusuf will then stay awake on that level.
Yeah.
And try to drive off with them as they are sleeping in the van. But before that, like the security has found them. They're in there. And Arthur, he's going to try to shoot at some of the people. And then Eames comes like, you mustn't be afraid to dream a little bigger.
And he pulls out a grenade launcher. Yeah, he pulls out a grenade launcher. Pulls out a grenade launcher, starts blowing people up.
We said earlier, it's like, he said earlier, you got to dream bigger. So they leave, they're driving off, and then they're being chased, and then most of them save Yusuf and then drop down to the next level to sleep.
Yusuf is driving he's being chased across a bridge. And
before that, they're talking about their plan, right? Like, oh yeah, we should bring out, what's his name? Mr. Charles. Mr. Charles. Like, oh, he's Mr. Charles. And it's like, that's a bad idea. It's like, well, no, we're going to have to, the idea is like, we're going to alert himself at the next level that he's dreaming.
Yeah. So Mr. Charles.
We gain this trust at the same time.
Mr. Charles is basically a character that Cobb created for certain situations where they need to let the subject know that they're in a dream.
But basically, he's going to pretend that he is
his head of security. Yeah. He's yeah. So Mr. Charles is the head of security.
When Fisher wakes up, he's at like a hotel bar, and Leonardo DiCaprio, he shows up, Cobb shows up, right? But he's Mr. Charles. And he starts talking about, it's like, oh yeah, no, like I'm the head of security. And Fisher's like, oh, the hotel's like, no,
not at the hotel. You're in a dream right now.
Right. And he starts alerting him to certain things. Right. And he's like, look at the weather. And so as they're fleeing the security up at that first level of dreaming, it's raining.
Mm-hmm.
All of a sudden you see this rain appearing just in the middle of the hotel. And so,
and of course, everybody who's in the bar just starts looking over at him.
This second level of subconscious now, Fisher realizes like, oh, dreaming. And so, yeah, everyone starts looking. So,
Yeah.
and he's just like, you've been trained about this. You know how to deal with this. I'm here to protect you.
Yeah, his goal now, Cobb's goal now, is to convince Fisher that he is who he says he is. And as he convinces Fisher, then all of the projections of his subconscious start going back to their business.
Yeah.
He's no longer a threat, or at least he's no longer perceived to be a threat.
We kind of forgot, even before they went back down, Ariande and Cobb had a discussion again about alerting people that Mal might be breaking through at any time, like a freight train.
Yes.
Which is the freight train. Anyway.
And also before going into this dream, he talked about the top with her.
Yes.
So
I thought that was really the deepest level about what he did with the top to convince Mal. Because I know he also
You're right. Yeah. Because that is later. Because it's at the dollhouse.
Yes.
Yeah. You're right. It's later.
But there's still scenes there where they're talking about the entire situation, where he finally reveals that night that was in that hotel room on their anniversary.
No, it wasn't.
He goes in there.
It was earlier. It was before they went into the dream that he talked to her about it, because they were still talking about totems.
Yeah.
And he takes out the top, and she's like, "Is that your totem?" She's like, "No, this is Mal's totem."
That's his Mal's totem. That's right. He hasn't revealed yet what he did in the safe with it.
No.
But revealed that.
But he's revealed that it's her totem. That this is Mal's totem. She would spin it when we're in a dream, and if it was in a dream, it would never stop spinning.
Right.
And so that explains why every time he comes out of a dream, he spins the top.
Yeah.
And if it falls over, he knows he's in the real world. But it's very important that he mentioned it wasn't his totem; it was Mal's totem.
We forgot to mention
he has adopted it.
This is still in the warehouse, even before we get to the next level, is where it is revealed that the larger thing of that night in that hotel suite, he steps on a champagne flute that's laying on the ground. He cracks the stem off, right?
Yeah.
He's looking around. The room's a mess.
Mm-hmm. Like it had been robbed or something.
And this is where it kind of gets weird, because he looks out the window and Mal is sitting on the ledge across the way.
Yeah.
Which is a little weird, right? But then again, he's dreaming this. So his dream might construct it differently than how it happened. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Who knows? But they go into this conversation, and she's convinced that they are still dreaming themselves, that they need to wake up.
Because
right?
he's
trying to convince her. No, we have already woken
before
up.
This dream, before this part, it was explained why he can't go back to America.
Right?
Because he's been accused of murdering Mal.
Right? Because she had herself declared sane, but
by
she was
3 different doctors.
She just needed to wake up.
Mm-hmm.
And she was trying to take him with her.
Yeah.
To wake up.
Yeah, so he can't go back to America because he supposedly killed his wife.
You wake up by dying.
And
right?
And so this whole little dream sequence here explains it.
She decides to jump out of a hotel room window, essentially.
Mm-hmm. But she doesn't want to do it alone. She wants to do it with him. She wants him to jump out too. And he's like, "No, I can't. We're in the real world. We're not dreaming right now. If you jump, you will die. Our kids are waiting for us. Our kids are waiting for us at home. If we jump, we will die. We aren't going to wake up from it."
Yeah. And so, but then so not only is it that he needs, he wants to get back to his kids, but he is guilty for jumping out because,
Yeah, because she
at this point, Ariane only thinks of it as he's pushing the limits.
Yeah.
And that's what the sort of reality. There's more to it later that we'll get to.
Yeah, so she had herself declared sane by 3 different doctors, and when they're on the ledge and he's trying to coax her off of the ledge back into the room, then she's like, "We're going to do this together." He's like, "No, I won't. I will not jump out this window with you." And she's like, "Well, if you don't, I've already made arrangements with the lawyers."
Yeah.
That if you don't jump with me, you will be accused of killing me.
They will think you pushed me out.
They will think that you pushed me out this window and murdered me.
And again,
so she's blackmailing him.
There's all these aspects of that sequence because you look at the room, look where she is, that doesn't make any sense. But again, it's his dream. He's going to imagine in a certain way.
Yeah.
So anyway, she jumps DiCaprios, and Ariana is you got to confront the team about this. She keeps saying that at different points throughout the movie. It doesn't happen. Anyway, so then that's when we kind of get back through the chase and then down to the next level. And I forgot about this in the next level. Even before Mr. Charles there's that beautiful blonde.
Yes.
That is talking with Fisher.
Yes.
Cock. Oh, I didn't. Anyway. Fisher's thinking that. Anyway, not really. He seems preoccupied.
Yeah, but then that beautiful blonde goes and gets in the elevator with Saito. And it's revealed that the blonde is Eames.
Tom Hardy. It's begging.
Because he's the forger. He's the impersonator. He just needs to act like the particular person that he's supposed to be acting like. And whoever's dream they're in, their subconscious is going to fill in the blanks and make them look like that person.
He's about to break Christian Bale's back. Anyway.
That's a different movie. But
also Christopher Nolan.
Yes. But
anyway.
Yeah. So...
But it's funny, like it gets to the thing, like, you know, they're talking about the blondes. Oh yeah, you know, it's an interesting way to make friends. And then it's like, yeah. And so, oh yeah, it's like they're talking about how like you gotta be careful. What is it they say? Oh yeah, the two of them kind of like press against each other. When she actually gets off the stool, she presses against Fisher because they need to make Fisher thinks like something's been robbed.
Yeah.
Right. And so that way, Cobb or Mr. Charles can say like, oh, you might want to check for your wallet.
Yeah.
Right.
It's worth what, like $500 bucks?
You had that wallet mentioned earlier, right? No, I think he's been robbed. And so that gains the trust that, okay, yeah, no, he might actually, you know, and then he alerts them about the security. We talked about that. But I was like, that wallet alone's worth, and Cobb's like, $500. I know. Don't worry about it. And again, it would make sense because like the person that might know is $500 from Fisher would be like if Fisher's himself actually knew.
Yeah.
His subconscious
part of his subconscious.
His subconscious would tell him $500. It's all very well like laid out.
Yeah. Now, meanwhile, Arthur is showing Ariadne how he's putting together the kick.
Yes.
Right. There's these two hotel rooms. There's the one that all of the people are supposed to gather into in order to drop into the next level of the dream, and that is room 528. And so Arthur takes Ariadne.
The hotel.
Yeah. So Arthur takes Ariadne down one level, and they go to room 491, which is just below 528. Now, if you remember, 528, 491 were those 6 numbers that Fisher came up with just off the top of his head. The first numbers that popped in his head. So you got room 528 and room 491. And so they go into 491, and Arthur starts planting C4 on the ceiling.
I think there's also a part where they're like in the elevator, it rumbles a little bit. They talk about like, and Arthur's like, oh, that's Yusuf's driving. Right? Yeah. Because remember, they're going to feel things at different levels, and they're being chased at that level above.
Being chased, yeah. And
so we're not seeing, at this point, we're not seeing a whole lot of what's actually happening above. We will see it soon.
Yeah.
We're not really seeing it yet.
So we're just seeing like little glimpses of a car chase going on up there.
And then we get back, you know, to Cobb and Fisher thing, and he's explaining it more and more. It's like, you're not safe here. You got to trust me. They're coming for you. Right. And then that's when you're kind of getting the back and forth. It's like, you know, you're seeing the rain, and you see the rain in the hotel, and then like you see like vibrations on the bar, right? The glasses are shaking, right? So, you know, he's trying to, you know, Yusuf is trying to elude the security on that first level. Right. I love how like, you know, they all have their earphones in and they're moving back and forth. Yeah. It's really well done.
They have the headphones on because that's how, when it comes time, Yusuf will cue the music.
Yes.
And
Yusuf at that level will cue the music, and there we go. Wake them up. And eventually they'll be queued up at the first level by the stewardess.
Yep.
Anyway. They keep racing, and then eventually, you know, everything gets back. Like he's on the straight track, you know, straight away again. Like he's not racing. And then Cobb convinces Fisher to follow him up the flights of the hotel. Right, they get into the room, right, and he's like, "Oh, these are my associates." Well, actually, no, the other guys chase them first, right, because the subconscious is still on that level.
Yeah,
trying to protect him.
Yeah.
Cobb dispatches them. He's like, "These men were sent to harm you."
Yeah.
And then they get up
I'll protect you.
They get up to 528 where they're meeting with everybody else to try to look at things. And all of a sudden Fisher's like, well, if this is a dream, if I shoot myself, I'll wake up.
Yeah.
And So Cobb's like, wait, no, I think you're heavily sedated enough.
Yeah, I think you're heavily sedated enough that if you shoot yourself, you'll end up in limbo. And so he convinces him to put the gun down. And he's like, in order to get rid of the people who are trying to break into your mind, we're going to need to go into your dream. We'll need to hook you up to this and go a little bit deeper into your subconscious.
Right. Then that's actually when we see Arthur and Ariadne. They're not up there yet. Like, they're actually bound in 491, and they're putting C4
on the ceiling.
Up on the ceiling, right? Because why they need 2 rooms, because they need to be able to drop the one and the other, right?
Yeah, because they're creating the kick.
Now
they're planning to blow out the floor, and it's going to drop everybody.
He's trying to get Fisher to kind of remember back to, like, what do you remember before all this happened, right? It's like, oh, there's rain, there's gunfire, there's Uncle Peter. Oh, I was kidnapped. And then, like, what were they holding me? He's like, oh yeah, we were in the back of a van. He's like, oh, your body's bouncing all around. That's why all this stuff's happening. Right? They're probably trying to extract a number from her head. And he's trying to remember the number he gave him, right? And they cut back and down 491. Ariadne is like, okay, well, do you use a timer? And like Arthur's like, no, Arthur's the dreamer at this point. I don't think we mentioned that, right? So we got
so they're all inside Arthur's dream right now.
In the first level of dream, Arthur's level in the second level of dream. I got to judge it for myself, right? It's like, once you're all asleep up in this room, I wait till Yusuf starts his kick. And he's like, how you know, right? He's like, oh, well, he'll hear the music, right? And then, he's thinking, like, I'll also, like, get other cues in the vein.
Once I hear the music, then I have 4 minutes till the kick at this level.
And then, we cut back. So, he's kind of walking through the lobby, and he's like, he sees Browning. He's like, I recognize you. And Browning looks at him like, what?
Yeah.
And then he sees Ames. He's like, oh, sorry, I mistook you for a friend. So, like, because, again,
he's like, so you're not the blonde anymore, huh?
That's right.
And Brownie's like, what? Yeah, then he sees Ames, and he's like, I'm sorry, my mistake.
Fisher, he's in within the dream, sharing the dream world. Fisher can still project his subconscious into there, right? And Ames like, you know what? No, we got to see how he behaves. Anyway, Brownie gets up, and he gets up to the 5th floor, and then, he gets in there, and then, he sees Cobb and Fisher, and they make it seem like it's Browning that orchestrated everything.
Because this Browning in this level is a product of subconscious. It's a projection. It's not Eames like it was in the first level.
Yeah. And the entire idea
planting the
is
seeds in the first level, so in the next level, Fisher's subconscious makes him appear to be how they have suggested.
Right. So, like, and they plant the idea as like, oh, did you actually see them kidnap him and torture him? It's like, no, I just heard it. It's like, oh, okay. And then the thought is that Browning does not want Fisher to break up the Empire, because that's been Browning's entire life. That's the seed. And then they talk about the whole disappointing thing, and Browning's like, you will make this empire greater than he ever could. And then Cobb keeps playing this idea, like, he's lying to you. Just like, how do you know? Like, it's what I do. He's lying to you. And they put the idea, like, all right, let's put him to sleep and penetrate his subconscious. And that's not really the idea.
Yeah.
That's what they want Fisher to think.
Yeah, so they want Fisher to think.
They're going to put him to sleep.
Yeah, so they get Fisher all set up. And
Ariadne's like, wait, we're going to Fisher's? And she's like confused, like, we're going to Fisher's. Yeah, I was like, we're going to Fisher's. I told him it was Browning, so he'd come with us. He thinks he's part of the team.
So Fisher takes a sedative and then passes out, and they hook him up, and they all go in. And all of a sudden, they're in the snow. Cobb has a sniper rifle, and Fisher is right there next to him.
There's a fortress kind of looking like from a Bond movie.
Very, very Bond-like. Very Bond ski chalet fortress evil lair kind of feel to it.
George Lazenby.
Yes. You definitely expect George Lazenby to show up. Maybe some Roger Moore also.
Yeah.
But yeah, you definitely expect George Lazenby to be there.
The idea is they really want Ames and Sayera to root into the complex that's in here, right? And like, there's a section within this whole fortress that's the most fortified, right? Because obviously the idea is that I'm playing the idea like this is the most fortified place of the subconscious, right?
Yes.
But it's like ultimately it has to be Fisher doing it, right? They convince Fisher to be the one that actually breaks in because they need him to think that he is breaking into his godfather's mind when he's really breaking into his own mind.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. So this is where it like gets kind of trippy. Not that like the rest of the movie wasn't trippy at all, but
Cobb and Ariadne, they're just hanging back, kind of like from a sniper position.
That's right. It's that's right. It's Ariadne that's with Cobb, not Fisher. Yeah.
And Saedo and Ames are with Fisher. They're trying to get down in. Because Arthur is hanging back because he's the one dreaming on the other level. So he can't go down this level.
Yeah. So he's got to set up the kick for that second level. Yeah. And he's sort of watching over everybody there.
But meanwhile, so now that we have all this going on, like we're getting towards the climax right now. This is when all of a sudden they amp everything else up, each level up. Mm-hmm. So now we're getting even more of what's really going on the upper level with the chase. And again, like it's done like slower motion, right? Because it's not in real time from what's going on at the third level down. Mm-hmm. And it's great because like eventually, and you got Arthur, he's trying to orchestrate everything so that he can pick everything back up. And then at the same time, there's still everyone's level down is still trying to get in while maintaining all this gunfire. And Saedo still now feeling more and more of the effects of being shot
on the first level. Yeah. It's starting to slowly work its way through the levels.
So, you have this whole scene where on the first level where all of a sudden, like, they're being chased and they get like sideswiped. And this is an embankment. And the van they're in starts tumbling down the hill. Mm-hmm. Right? And this scene, like, you talk about practical effects.
Yes.
This is the sequence.
Incredible.
Right here. And like...
So basically here...
Joseph Gordon-Levitt, like, he goes down. He gets all the explosives set in 491. Mm-hmm. He leaves, and now he's trying to get up to the fifth floor. But the security is now trying to find him on that fourth floor, and he's out there in the hallway.
Yeah, and then the hallway just starts spinning.
And
as the van in the first level is tumbling down this hill, the hallway that Joseph Gordon-Levitt and this guy that he's fighting are in starts just tumbling. It starts spinning, and it's crazy how they did this, how they did the effects for this, because they built the room, they built the hallway, they built the room, and they had it suspended, and they just started spinning it, and they filmed in there. And so it's all, when they're running around the ceiling and the floor and the walls and everything, just tumbling in this thing, it was actually, the set was tumbling.
And the music in this sequence is fantastic. It's like, it's deep. It's like, boom. Mm-hmm. Right? It's like, and like they're fighting and they're climbing over trying everything. And there's some hand to hand and right, trying to fend off each other and keep spinning and finally, he gets the upper hand and he's able to shoot the guy in the head. Right, mm-hmm. Just as the van like stops spinning, right, because it's down like an embankment down to another road. Mm-hmm. Right. I love how then Yusuf, he looks like, did you see that? He's laughing at having no idea what Arthur just went through the level below.
So Yusuf starts driving again, gets out on a bridge.
Right. And then, it's kind of like a drawbridge where instead of like it kind of lifting, two sections kind of lifting up to create a space in between, you get kind of like a security barriers that pop up. Mm-hmm. And the middle section lifts up. And like things pop up just in time. Because again, Yusuf's the dreamer. So he can do whatever he wants within this part. So he, that's what he creates is that the bumps pop up, right? To crash the other vehicles. Mm-hmm. And they get into the middle section and it lifts up. So those parts can't harm him at this point, right? And so now this is where the bump comes in. So in the middle of a bridge, and he drives off the bridge. And for the rest of the movie, that van is fallen.
Yeah. Well, not quite the rest of the movie entirely, but almost the rest of the movie. Yeah, that van is slowly falling off the bridge. Very slowly falling off the bridge. But while it's falling, All of a sudden, in the next level down where Joseph Gordon-Levitt is, where Arthur is, there's no gravity. So he starts floating.
How do I create a kick?
Like, how do I create a kick when there's no gravity? And the music had started playing. So he's got limited time. He's got 4 minutes to get the kick going. Otherwise, he's going to miss his cue and it's not going to work.
And it's really more than 4 minutes for us. It's 4 minutes for his level.
Yeah, it's 4 minutes for his level. But for us, it's like 20 minutes. For us watching, it's like 20 minutes. So what he ends up doing is, through cutting back and forth through this level and then also the level below where everybody else is.
And then occasional
back to see the van, seeing how few inches it moved closer to the water. So he basically goes and gathers up everybody.
He ties them together,
takes them down the hall, puts them in the elevator, and goes back to 491 and gets all that C4.
But there's still someone else, security, that's waiting.
Yes.
Once he gets a C4, and he has to take care of that person. So, takes care of him.
You got an anti-gravity fight going on.
The idea is that, he's going to make the shock happen within the elevator and let the elevator drop.
Yeah. So, basically he's putting everybody in the elevator, then attaching the C4 to the top of the elevator so that it propels it down the elevator shaft.
Yeah. It's a good plan. Meanwhile, on the third level, in the snow, all the security keeps ramping up.
Yep. And they hear the cue. They hear the music. So like, oh, we don't have much time. We got to speed this up. And none of them are at the building yet.
So this is what they say. This is the good kind of explanation of the time, right? It's like, oh, Cobb's like, okay, Yusuf has about 10 seconds for the jump, which gives Arthur about 3 minutes and gives us 60 minutes. Mm-hmm. So he starts talking to Ariande. He's like, okay, well, can they get to that sanctum in time to do it? And she's like, I don't think so. Like, well, they need a direct route. And she's like, well, it's supposed to be a maze. And he's like, well, yeah, but there should be like access routes through the maze. And then he's talking about, it's like, well, did Ames add anything else? And it's like, well, yeah. It's like, well, she's like, I shouldn't tell you because Mal might tell you
because Mal might show up. She might come through. Right. And he's like, well, we don't really have a choice.
And it's like, it's like, oh, well, he had trapdoors and closets and it's like,
he had a ventilation system that goes to different areas.
And he's like, explain it to them. So they eventually, they find it. I forgot. So when Arthur was fighting that second security guy, before he gets everything set up, they get in that stairwell and they get into the paradox of the 10 row steps.
Yes.
And he shoves him off the steps. That's what happens.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a cool little sequence there.
Yeah. So then they fall down. They trigger that avalanche to wipe out a bunch of them. But then they get through that shaft, right? And then they're trying to keep figuring everything out. It's like, okay, well, in terms of time, the van can hit the water, but Arthur still technically has a little bit of time, and then we have a little bit of time after that, right?
Yeah. So they get to where they're going, and
they finally get to that sanctum.
Yeah, they get to the sanctum, and Fisher and Eames and Saito get up in there. There's this big vault door.
Yeah, it looks like. I mean, it's funny. It actually looks like a giant bank vault door. Cobb, he's with Ariande. They're looking down. They can see within this room.
Yeah. And
Saito, he's deteriorating fast.
Yeah. Saito, he's the effects of getting shot in the first level are really starting to hit him in this third level. His bottom level.
All of a sudden, they get in there and he's looking through the scope. Cobb's looking through the scope, and Mal shows up.
Yeah. Just as Fisher is walking up toward this vault door, and Mal shows up, and she shoots Fisher. Yeah,
well, even before that, Ariande's trying to convince Cobb, she's not real.
Yeah, take the shot.
Take the shot. Fisher is real. She's a projection of your subconscious, right?
Mm-hmm. But he can't shoot
her. He's like, what if she's real? He can't do it, and then she shoots Fisher, right? And, they finally all get down in there, and Ames like, what happened? I couldn't shoot her. And he was like, oh man, we failed. I really want to see what's in there. Right?
Yeah, because Fisher is dead on the floor.
The thing is, once he gets shot, the mind goes down that next level.
Yeah, and so Fisher is laying there. They grab a first aid kit and they're trying to save him, but they can't. He's dead on the floor. And so by this time, Cobb and Ariadne are there, and they determine, well, Mal has him in limbo.
Right. And she's like, well, no, we still have time, right? We can follow him down. And it's like, what? Yeah, we have more time down there.
Yeah, the Ariadne's saying this.
Yes. So down there's enough time to find him, right?
And as long as we can get him out of limbo.
You can use that's right. Yeah, there's up here. You can use the defibrillator. They can jumpstart Fisher's heart to help ride everything back up.
Yeah.
And then that's why they say, as music ends, if you blow the hospital, we'll all ride the layers back up, right? And Sawyer's still there. He's not going to ride it down. He's going to try to hold off everybody, right?
Mm-hmm.
So Fisher, Ariadne, and Cobb, they go down to the next level.
Yeah, so
they're on the beach now, and then she's looking at it as they get there because it's just her. They don't know where Fisher is yet.
Yeah, so Ariadne and Cobb show up on the beach. So Cobb is again just like the beginning of the movie. Looks like he's washed up on the shore.
Yeah,
and then Ariadne pops up behind him in the water. It looks like It looks like the same beach from the beginning of the movie.
She's looking around, and it's crumbling at first. As they move in closer, they can see it's newer, it's different, right?
Mm-hmm.
And she's marveling at it.
Yeah, she's like, "You built
all this? Oh yeah, we both did." It's it's incredible.
Yeah, because he had mentioned earlier that he and Mal had spent 50 years in limbo together.
It's we built this for years.
Yeah.
And what I like about all of this point, they talk about these years, but you only see them as they are at that age.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Until we get up to their apartment.
Mm-hmm.
They're talking about things. And it's funny. It's they talk about, this is our neighborhood. What city? It's no, we kind of built everything together.
Yeah, just from pieces of our past, there's the house.
We would have liked to have done this.
There's our first house.
Possible.
There's the apartment we lived in when we got married. There's, and then they walk by this one house that looks a little different than all the rest of them. And Ariadne's like, "What's that house?" And Cobb's like, "Well, that's the house that Mal grew up in."
And finally, we both want a house to live in. We love skyscrapers.
Yeah.
In the real world, that can't be possible, right?
But here,
so
we can combine the two.
Yeah. So they go on, and they finally they get up there, and then that was also part of the conversation there, right? Because Ames I'm going to take the kick back up, right? And Ariana's I got to trust you to be able to do what needs to be done, even though Mal's down there. He's he talks to the whole thing, I know where she's going to be, which is where the room, their old house comes into question, right?
Yeah. So they go into the house, which is the hybrid house and skyscraper kind of thing. But they walk down the same hallway that they were walking down together in Cobb's dream. And
in the dream, it's kind of weird, but it seems very dreamlike because it's really a long, narrow hallway.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't seem right for what should be a hallway in a house.
Yeah. But now we know that it's because they took the skyscraper and they, mixed it in with a house.
Within the house,
created their dream home.
Yeah.
Literal dream home. But yeah, so they go in and they find Mal.
And they're talking about it as they're going up the elevator too. It's he said you have to, there's something else you have to know about Inception. It's a virus that grows in the mind, right? And they get off the lift. They go down, right? And they're kind of walking slowly, and it's highly contagious. And an idea can grow. The smallest seed of an idea can grow to define or destroy someone's world. And they even kind of talk about this with Tom Berenger, like this guy that he's the one family that he's kind of trusted. He might grow to distrust him, because of what we're doing.
Yeah,
they get there, and Mal's sitting at the table. There's her back's to them, right? You can kind of see this time the windows are a little bit different. You can see that it's limbo, right?
Yeah.
They're constructed worlds. You can see that aspect now is different. But there's a butcher's knife there, and she's kind of playing with it with her fingers, right?
Sort of running her fingers over the blade.
And she looks over that. It's they're kind of talking, and all of a sudden, Mal talks, you're so certain of your world, of what's real, right? And it's do you think he's lost? And Kyle's I know what's real. And Mal tries to talk, again, it's a subconscious, this part of him that's trying to persuade himself that maybe there's something else that's different. He's using Mal to do it, right? Because he doesn't want to believe that she's dead, because he blames himself for his death.
He blames himself for her death.
We don't get to that full reason yet.
No.
Right? And Mal talks what distinguishes a dream? It's funny, they talk about laws of physics, reappearance of the dead, heaven and hell. There's all these conversations, right? Doubts. And then she finally gets to this, she talks to Mal. It's not Mal. Mal talks to Cobb. You don't believe in our reality anymore, right? You can choose reality like I did. Planting these seeds, right? And again, it makes sense because you see him throughout the movie having to spin that top to make sure that he's awake. Which, and when you look back through all this at this point, I guess that's the point, right? Part of the point. We'll get to another point later, which is probably the most important point. You see him at times where, especially with what seems like supposed to be the real world, where he's really blending it with a dream world.
Yeah.
I keep going back to that first time he's talking to his kids on the phone. Like, there's a lot. Like, if this was the second time I was to watch the movie, I could see someone looking at that and realizing, oh, maybe this whole thing is a dream. The way he responds to it and the way it's presented. Because it's funny. That's probably one of the few scenes that you have where it really is just him.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, they have this whole dream sequence where they're all sharing it together. That's the main thrust of the second half of the movie. You have these other major sequences in the first half of the movie where he's training Ariande, right? Or the prologue kind of the movie, the first act of the movie, right? They're in Sierra's dream trying to extract information from him, right? There's really not a lot where he's just really by himself.
Yeah.
Right? So, which is why, like, that once the sequence you have with him where it is kind of like that, it's like, it's going to blur that reality because he's not certain completely of that, which will come into focus later when you focus into his perspective again at the very end of the movie. But now, because it's not just him, because you also have Ariande there.
Yeah, Ariande's
three
there.
of them. Yeah, three people together here that are trying to piece this together.
Yeah, so they're like, so Cobb asks Mal, do you have Fisher? Is Fisher here with you? And she says, yes, I have him. And he's like, well, we need to take him back. We need to get him out of limbo. And she's like, you can't have him.
He's like, no, I've chosen. Like, our children, I have to get back to them. You left them. You left us. Right? And he's like, you're wrong. You're confused. They're here. The children are here. And she says their names. And
yeah, she calls out for James and Philippa. And he turns away before they can turn around because he does not want to see them. He knows if he sees their faces in this dream world, he won't be able to decipher if he's in the real world. Exactly.
And she says, they're like, you want to see their faces, wouldn't you? Yes, they're away. It's like, they're waiting up there. Meanwhile, up above, you still have all the scrambling above. The thing at this point is about to touch the water. Arthur's still scrambling to get everything ready. He's got them in
the elevator. He's hooking up the C4 to the top of the elevator.
Meanwhile, then you have the next level, and they're about to break into the room. Like, Theater's still there, right? You have Ames, like he's getting ready to jumpstart the next part of it, right? So, again, you have that shaft, that passageway that led from the outside straight to the vault. He had a grenade. He uses the grenade. He throws it down the shaft.
And then
that security blows up.
Yeah, then we're back in limbo then Cobb's trying to convince Mal to give up Fisher. And she says, okay, he can go.
Telling yourself they're not real, but you don't believe it.
Yeah, he can go. Fisher can go if you stay.
He's like, okay. But here's the thing. What's important about this? Like, he's going down to the level that broke everything for him, which is where he needs to go to actually repair it.
Yeah.
Right? He's been going into that one level of dreaming, trying to relive all these things, thinking it could be fixed or whatever. But that's not where he can fix it. He has to go back to that spot to fix it, right? He has to go back to the original location of the break-in. And so Mal tells him, okay, yeah, he's on the balcony.
Yeah, so Cobb sends Ariadne out to check on him, make sure he's really out there, and that he's okay. And she goes out and checks, and he's there.
And then, and then it's funny, though, like the Mal, it's like, not just what do you believe, right? Because you can believe any sort of type of thing. It's like, what do you feel? And the funny thing is, like, you can feel any sort of thing as well. And then finally, he's like, I feel guilty. And that's where it comes.
Yeah, so I feel guilty, and then that's where he starts explaining to Ariadne what actually he did.
And what's funny about this is, like, this part is the subconscious of even with Mal that he created that forgets the aspect of what really happened.
Yeah. So
because this part of Mal is not aware of the whole picture.
Yeah.
Right.
So basically, back before Mal died, Cobb and Mal had made their way to Limbo, and they spent 50 years there together building this place up.
And they've said 50. They've kind of said that. Oh yeah, it was 50 years.
Yeah.
But every time before that, we've seen them. It's like, they seem to not age.
Yeah, because they're in a dream world, and so yeah.
But then finally, it's like, no, aged. They aged.
Yeah.
They lived a whole lifetime together.
Yeah, they lived a whole lifetime together in Limbo, and it started to... So basically, Mal didn't want to leave.
Right.
And Cobb needed them to be able to leave so that they get back to their kids. So he decided he was going to plant an idea in Mal's mind that she would be able to see and know that they're in a dream and they need to get out of it. So he went into the house that she grew up in, where she had this dollhouse.
Yeah.
And the safe where she kept her most prized possession, which was in there.
He spun a top.
Is a top. Her totem.
And because
she
it's
had
a
put
dream,
it in the safe.
He can manipulate it to do whatever he wants it to do. And it's a top that wouldn't fall.
Yeah. So, but yeah, it's her totem in there. And he knows how it's supposed to work. He knows that if you're in a dream, it's supposed to just keep spinning. If you're in the real world, it's supposed to topple over. And it's just sitting there in the safe. So he picks it up, spins it, shuts the safe, and the top just stays spinning. So that next time Mal goes to look at it, when she goes to open the safe, she'll see that the top is spinning.
And she'll believe that, okay, this reality isn't real.
Yeah, this is a dream.
Because they've been in there for 50 years. At least their perception of it.
Yeah.
Right?
And so...
Meanwhile, it's been probably like 12 hours.
Yeah. So she does that. She sees that, and she realizes, okay, we're in a dream. And so they go, and they lay down across the train tracks together.
And that's where the earlier quote comes from.
Yeah. And so they're laying down, their heads are on the tracks, and they're just laying across the tracks. And then this is where you get kind of flashes of their young selves, and then all of a sudden they're older, because...
He has to
Cobb has explained to her, we spent a lifetime here. We grew old together here. And so the train comes.
Weird, like the Mal of his subconscious is not this, not the true Mal, right?
Yeah.
He doesn't remember any of it.
Yeah. And so the train comes, and it's the same train that crashed through traffic earlier.
Yep.
And all of a sudden they wake up in their apartment.
But she was never sure of the reality again.
Yeah. But yeah, because of this seed that Cobb had planted in her mind, it caused doubt to blossom in her mind that they were really in the real world. And so then that's what ended up snowballing and causing her to believe that they were still dreaming and needed to get out of it, and which was what eventually caused her to jump out the window to her death. So this entire movie, Cobb has been feeling guilty for what happened to Mal, because ultimately it was his suggestion that he planted in her brain, no matter how innocent it was at the time, that ended up fueling these thoughts in her brain.
I think, it was innocent, but, I think he understood there was consequences to it.
He understood the risk.
But he understood that at the same time, it's like they were living in a world that didn't really exist.
Yeah.
Even within that world, he wanted to get back to his kids.
Yeah.
And then the world within the movie, he wants to get back to his kids.
Mm-hmm.
Right? He needs to see them again. That's the goal, right?
Yeah.
Like, they could have done all these things that's great and all, but it's not as important to what he was trying to get. It's like, he knew that they needed to escape, and she was having trouble dealing with that. I'm sure there's more we could probably say about that aspect of it and dissect that, but yeah, she was having trouble, and he had to help both of them escape.
Yeah, so back to present day limbo, after the flashback.
The way he puts it is that he understood, that house she grew up in, that's where the deepest parts of her mind were, right? Because that's where she was born.
Yeah.
That's where she grew up. That's where her subconscious was formed.
Yeah.
So she had to find his way into that, within that world, to plant the idea.
Yeah.
Anyway, go on.
Yeah, so back to the present day limbo. Cobb has agreed to stay with Mal so that Ariadne can take Fisher back. So yes. Ariadne sort of just shoves Fisher over the balcony.
Give him the push.
Yeah, gives him the push. Pushes him over the literal push.
I'm improvising.
And so he goes plummeting down and wakes up in the third level.
Now he's able to, before the next push at that level.
Yeah. So he gets up and he walks over to the vault. He opens the vault, walks in there, and he sees a hospital bed with his dad in it. And he walks up, and
this is the strange thing. This level is supposed to be the hospital level. And that's what he finally sees it. But it's constructed or viewed within the snowscape. It's really crazy.
So he walks up, and his dad sort of motions to him to lean down, and he leans down, and his dad whispers something in his ear.
It's the disappointment.
Yeah, he whispers disappointed. So he's thinking he's disappointed in me, and he's like, no, I'm not disappointed in you.
I'm disappointed that you tried to be like me.
Yeah, I'm disappointed. I'm not disappointed in the man you became. I'm disappointed in the fact that you tried to become me.
Which is not true, but that's what he believes, which is important.
That's what they've been sort of guiding him to believe. And then, so then there's a little safe next to the hospital bed. And, the picture is on the table, the picture of him as a child with the pinwheel, and he sees it, and he goes down and he opens the safe using those 6 digits, 528491, and it opens up the safe. And the only thing in there's on the top shelf of the safe, there's a last will and testament.
Yeah.
And it's his dad's will. But below that, on the bottom part of the safe,
the pinwheel.
He pulls out the pinwheel from the picture. And that is all he needed to get the idea that, he shouldn't be following in his father's footsteps.
That his dad cared about him and didn't want him to be like him.
Yeah. So he gets the idea that in order to go along with his father's last wishes, or
he has to become his own man,
or what he thinks are his father's last wishes.
Or what we think his dying wishes might have been. And so we commit his body to the bosom of the Pacific Ocean.
Oh, Big Lebowski is such a great movie. How many episodes have we mentioned Big Lebowski in?
I don't know. I was not expecting Big Lebowski in Inception.
No, me neither.
I can get you a dream.
I can get you a dream.
You don't want to know. I can get you a dream.
I want to know why in none of these dream levels, why was there no too excited trampoline guy?
I don't know. He needed to be there somewhere. Old Ken Watanabe.
Yes.
What else is he doing? He's like 5 levels down.
Yeah. But anyway, in order to, so once we get that established that, he finds the pinwheel, all that, then back to limbo.
Right, because now Ames can start the train reaction for them to go up. But DiCaprio, Cobb has to stay down because
because he agreed.
Sayre's dead by now.
Yeah.
Which means he's down at this level. I have to find him.
Yeah, because so at this point, so in order to stop Mal from making Cobb stay, Ariadne shoots her.
Vagina.
So Ariadne shoots Mal. And she's like, hey, now Mal's out of the picture. You can come back with me. And Cobb's like, no, I got to stay. And she's like, what are you talking about? He's like, by now, Saito's dead. He's died in the first level. So he's down here somewhere. I got to go find him.
Obviously, the fucking nihilists know where he is. Okay.
Fuck it, dude. Let's go bowling. But anyway, so.
But the nihilists know where he is. The figments of the dream. Like they believe in nothing.
Yeah, so while Mal is dying in Cobb's arms, he's explaining to her, I need to let you go.
Yeah. No, he's like, we did grow. This is where it's like, we did grow old.
This is where we grew old here, and we had a life together, and I love you, but I have to let you go. And so he lets her go, and she dies. And then he tells Ariadne that he's got to go get Saito, and so Ariadne goes out and she jumps off the balcony so that she can get kicked back up to reality.
And then, they keep stepping up. He's like, there's a whole scene too. He's like, he says like, I'm sorry, I had to let you go. She's like, yeah, don't lose yourself. Like, she's concerned about him, right? He's like, I miss you more than you can imagine, more than I can bear. But we had time together here. It's like a lifetime. He recalls like, they spent the lifetime, which is important for him to remember this, right? So then you start getting all these kickbacks, right? And you finally get the kickback up back to that first level dreaming. And you got Browning and Fisher there, and Browning's like, "Oh, I'm sorry about all this," right? And they're staring. It's like, Dad wanted me to be my own man. So we get the idea within that first level of the dream. He's implanted in his mind that he needs to forge his own way.
Yeah.
And then, the rest of them, they're still there in that first level. And like, oh, where's Cobb? And He's like, oh, he stayed, So I was like, with Mal, I was like, no, he's finding Saito. Which kind of begs you the question, though. Like, so did he go one level deeper
No, because Saito's in limbo. You can't go any deeper than limbo.
He ends up back on like the
he ends
shore.
up back on the shore.
Beach. Like, how does he do that?
So we end up the same shot as the opening shot of the movie.
Right. Like, so how does he end up there though from the apartment?
That is a good question. Because I mean, once you're in limbo, you can't really go into limbo.
Right, but like, is limbo the fourth level? Or is a level down from that third? I don't know. Anyway, I guess that's my question. I guess. Like,
yeah. I mean, that's something that's never really explained, how he ended up on the beach again.
Well, no, I guess if it's a place where you can construct wherever you want, he can construct himself to where Saito might be.
Yeah, true. So, So anyway, he washes up on shore, just like the same exact opening shot of the movie. You know, he's in there, guy comes up with a gun, puts the gun in his face, notices he's got a gun in the back of his pants.
Yeah.
In his waistband, and takes him to an old Saito.
Yeah.
And it's funny, it's that scene from the beginning of the movie.
I love that. It's like at the beginning of the movie, he's like, "Oh, have you come to kill me?" Like, and like being the movie, like, "Oh, that might make sense." Like, there's this guy with this gun, and he's old. He might think someone, he's got the security. That's a reasonable question, right? And he's like, I've been waiting for someone to come for me. And then Cobb's like, someone from a half-remembered dream. And at that point, like, Saito's been down there for a long time.
Yeah.
At least in his conscience.
I mean, at this point, Saito, at least
this like, oh yeah, whatever it was that was why he was originally down there was like a dream.
Yeah. I mean, this dream version of Saito is an old man. Like, he's old.
Yeah. And then I love how he's like, he was dreaming, like, it kickstarts something. He's like, Cobb? I was a young man with him. And
then you see Cobb, and he looks older. I mean, not like old, but he looks older than he was.
Right. And, and so he's like, I'm an old man. Cobb's like filled with regret. And it's like, it's Kickstarter. Like, these are important questions. I think it really ultimately helps answer the big question at the end of the movie. Mm-hmm. That's very soon.
Yes. So they're talking a bit, and
it's like, I came back for you, and I came to remind you what you once knew. And then it hits you, like, then he has to plant the thing. That this world's not real.
Yeah. Yeah. And then so Saito.
But then he's like, oh, he came to convince me to honor our arrangement.
Yes, to honor our arrangement. And so Cobb's gun had been placed on the table in front of Saito.
Yeah, he's like, oh, and to take a leap of faith. Right, which is the question. Which is the leap of faith? It was a line from Saito.
Which was the same line that Saito gave to Cobb earlier when he hired him for the job.
Right, and the gun's still there.
So you see Saito's hand go to the gun, and then all of a sudden,
Cobb's jump to the plane. We'll be young men together again.
Come back, we'll be young men together again.
And they all wake up. Cobb wakes up.
Everybody wakes up on the plane.
Saito wakes up, and he leans over. He sees the phone.
Yeah, so they wake up, and over the intercom, over the PA system, we hear we're making our final approach into Los Angeles.
Yes.
And so, it shows each member of the team waking up, and it shows Fisher waking up, and then it pans over, and Saito is sitting there awake, looking at Cobb, and all of a sudden realizes we're awake, reaches for the phone, then shows the airport.
Yeah.
And Cobb goes and gets his luggage.
There's all kind of acknowledgement.
And he's walking up
on the plane
to customs and
the
getting his passport
carrier,
checked,
and customs, and the guy's like, "Welcome home."
Yeah, he hands the guy his passport, expecting to have the cops called on him, and the guy looks at the passport, stamps it, hands it back to him, says "Welcome home."
And then he gets through, and he sees his father-in-law there, Michael Caine.
Miles is there to pick him up from the airport.
They get back. It's the house that we've seen before.
Yeah.
And he's getting there. There's the music, right? And he sees that his kids are outside. There's a table. He gets to the top. He starts to spin it. Walks outside, and he hears "Daddy!" And you see the kids turn around, and they hug. And then it pans back to the top. It's spinning. Looks like it's slowing down. And then the credits.
Yep. Yeah, so the top's spinning, and then it kind of wobbles a little bit. And as soon as it wobbles, that's when the credits roll.
Right. And of course the question is like, okay, because the tension's not on it anymore, like, if it's a dream, like, it could fall over, right? So, is it a dream? Is it not a dream? Or does it matter? The answer is that it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
He has a new reality that he's focused on, and whatever that is, it doesn't matter. Even though, in my opinion, he's in the real world.
Yeah.
Because the only people
in my opinion, he's in the real world too. Yeah.
Like, you look at him, like, he seems like he's like, is this real? Is this not real? The only people that really acknowledge him outside of the customs guy are people he already knows. You don't have other people drawing their attention themselves to him that you normally see, like, right? Within a dream, like, once your subconscious understands you might be in a dream, it focuses in on the subjects.
Yeah.
Plus the final interaction with Sayedo.
Yeah.
Seems like it's all aligned within that. And then in Ariande's like, he's going to be fine. We'll kick back up.
Mm-hmm.
Because, also, I don't like, maybe part of it's like, I don't like the idea of Ken Watanabe still being stuck down there, too.
Yeah. Yeah.
We can go all sorts of levels with this.
Yeah,
and
there's so much to...
We have spent a lot of time because there's so much to discuss with this.
Yeah. I mean, this is already our longest episode so far.
And it's probably not the longest movie we watched. Braveheart's a longer movie.
Yeah. But this one, there's just so much to discuss in this movie.
It's so much. We need this, the minutia, and yeah, it's funny. Like, yeah, I mean, it's probably been, I think, maybe, like you said, like 13 years, maybe 10 years, 11 years for me. Like, I think I've seen it since I've been married. Maybe not. I don't know. Like, yeah, it completely engrossed me again.
Yeah, me too.
What? I've seen it more than 5 times. It's been a while, but I had I need to make sure I check all these clues. I have to have these answers.
Yeah, I've seen it about that many times too.
And I watched it again, like, oh no, I'm just going, oh wow, that's really good. Wow. Oh wow.
Yeah.
And I get back, it's funny, I get back to the scene, like where the hallway is spinning, like, oh wow, it's so
yeah, it's just awesome.
Every level of it. And again, it gets back to what we initially talked about. It's like, it's not the main thrust of it, but it is like a subtext that seems like it was purposely put in there about making movies.
Yes.
You understand it, and it's, yeah, you're engrossed. And
it's an excellent movie. It's definitely a thinker. It's not one to watch if you're just wanting to, if you're tired.
Yeah, no. Well, it's funny. I was talking about we're tired. Really want to watch it. Like you said, if you had sleep last night.
Yeah.
I'm tired.
Yeah, that's weird because before recording this episode, I only got about 2 hours of sleep last night. So it's kind of interesting that we're recording an episode about Inception. Sleep deprived.
So Nicole's like, oh, I thought we were gonna watch this. They're like, yeah, you can watch a little bit. They're like, I need to watch this now, and are you going to bed or are you gonna watch it later? Like, I'll finish it all night. It was like, this is like 2:00 in the morning.
Yeah.
Right. And I got up 3.5 hours later.
Yeah. See, if you're wanting to just sit back and watch just a mindless movie, then this isn't the one for you to watch at that time. You should watch it. Yes, you should. Yeah, watch The Rock for that. But yeah, you should watch this movie. This movie is definitely worth a watch. It's a great movie. It's an amazing movie, but it is a thinker. So
even on a 5th watch, okay, yeah, I would watch. I need to watch it again because even the answers don't matter, but you gotta watch it again because there's so much it's trying to dive into.
Yeah, and you pick up on things on every watch that you didn't notice before.
And maybe part of it is also because all right, I'm a little older now. There's aspects of it being where okay, it's also looking back at regrets and life choices.
Yeah.
And all these things. And how all that feeds into your dreams and your subconscious. And it's trying to talk about some of that too. Yeah, I don't know. It's all important. And looking back at it now, it's I don't, when this came out 14 years ago, I've been thinking about some of those aspects of it. I've just been thinking about, okay, oh yeah, were they, was he, the end a dream or not a dream? Were they dreaming the entire time or not? But then you start to enter in these other aspects of your, it's talking about just your life in general.
Yeah.
Right? It's oh yeah. It's even Sayedo and Kano talking together, it has nothing to do with these major things. Okay, we were young men together. We can be young men together again. Yeah. It's,
yeah.
I even think to the scene where you first see McCain, and he just seems like a ragged old man on a thing. It's life happens to people on these things, and people try to create their own reality, that cope with whatever that might be. And anyway, it's a terrific movie.
It is. It really is. It's a fantastic movie. I highly recommend watching it if you haven't seen it.
It really.
And if you have seen it, watch it again. You'll pick up on some more stuff. You'll find stuff you didn't notice before.
Sometimes some movies that can kind of open interpretations on the end where you're trying to figure it out. Some don't hold up, or have like a long shelf life, so to speak. This holds up so well.
I mean, there could be college classes taught about this movie.
Yeah.
Just trying to unravel it.
Yeah, trying to unravel the movie, but then, like, a film class, like, oh, this is how you make a movie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because, like, it is how you make a movie. And it's like, it does a great job. It plays on emotions. And anyway, I love it. Nolan,
Yeah.
I know some people these days try to find faults where they can with Nolan. I'm sorry. I'm a big fan of his Batman trilogy. Big fan of I've always been a big fan of Memento. I mean, maybe that's part of it. Like, I was at the perfect time to catch on to him before it became super mainstream.
Yeah. Yes, you're the
and
Nolan
I saw
hipster.
him become mainstream. Like, I was like, oh yeah, he's gonna make a Batman movie. That's awesome. I like Christopher Nolan, and it was a great Batman movie.
Yeah.
And then became a great Batman trilogy.
Yeah.
And then he's made all these other movies: The Prestige, Inception, Interstellar. Right, and like now, like he's probably won the Oscar for Oppenheimer, which I fucking love.
Yeah.
Not to mention Insomnia and Tenet and Dunkirk, and who knows what he's going to do next. But yeah, no, he knows how to like play that aspect of the mind that wants to create its own stories. So he's the perfect director for this type of movie. But then, like, the movie itself just makes you think about we create our own stories within our own minds.
Yeah.
Like, Cobb has created this entire story, and he finally is able to admit it and move past it. And okay, so like, is this actually a dream and he's just thinking about it, or is it actually real and he's seeing his kids again?
Either way, he gets to be with his kids.
Yes, that's his reality. That's what he wants. That's fine.
Yeah.
And Saito gets to be his butler.
Yep.
Because he needs a job within the dream world, if it is a dream world.
But if it's the real world, then he gets to be his real world butler. So.
That's right. That's Inception.
That's Inception. Yeah. We could go on for
I could go on
hours and hours and hours about this movie, like longer than we've been talking about it. But we can't let this go on too long. It's already a long episode. But yeah, anyway. So if you want to follow us on social media, if you want to interact with us, we are on Facebook and Instagram and Threads. It's Rob and Tony's Cinematic Adventure. The and is spelled out, A-N-D, so it's not an ampersand like the name of the podcast. And we are also on X, or Twitter, whatever you want to call it. That is R&T Cinematic. And we are on Letterboxd. So if you have a Letterboxd account, you want to interact with us and see our reviews on movies, mostly Tony's reviews, because he does that more than I do on Letterboxd. Yeah, he handles the Letterboxd more. But yeah, you want to see our reviews on stuff, some movies that we've done, some that we haven't done yet, or some that, we might do in the future, then yeah, it's Cine Adventure or Cine Adventure, C-I-N-E Adventure on Letterboxd. And if you want to send us an email, let us know what you think of the show. Do you like Inception? Do you understand Inception? Do you have a take on it that, maybe we didn't bring up? You can shoot us an email at robandtonyscinematicadventure@gmail.com. And once again, the and is spelled out, A-N-D, not an ampersand. But yeah, in those places, look us up, find us, give us a like and a follow, and go to your favorite podcast app, wherever you listen to us, and, subscribe if you haven't already. Give us a good review if you enjoy the show, That's how the ratings and reviews are how we move up in the standings and how we get to be available to more people.
Leave a good comment, and maybe we'll talk about it.
Yeah.
And we'll say, hey, we never thought about this.
Yeah.
Hey, this person's a moron and should be shunned from polite society.
Yeah, that works too.
I mean,
yeah, if there's a movie that you think we should do, let us know what it is. We'll look at it and see if we can work it in there somewhere.
I have seen In the Army Now 5 times. So if you wanted to say, hey, I'm a Pauly Shore fan.
Yeah.
I've seen In the Army 15 times.
Or
In the Army Now.
Biodome, or Jury Duty, or Son-in-Law, or Encino Man.
No, Encino Man.
But anyway,
you're a Wayans fan, so you want us to do White Chicks.
Yeah.
I'm not touching that. Sorry. Not in this.
Oh, come on.
I draw the line in Scary Movie too.
Well, anyway, so Join us next time as we continue our Summer Blockbusters series.
I'm excited about this one.
So we
I
are
think the one's
gonna
worthwhile.
we are going to delve into the world of M. Night Shyamalan.
And not his first one, which
Nope.
was a surprise blockbuster.
Yes, we're not going to do his first one, The Sixth Sense. Instead, we're going to do his third one, Signs. We're going to do Signs next. So, yeah, join us next time for Signs. We will see you then.